the go-to site for your infinite source of precise, reliable, and factual material exposing the Watchtower organization.
Well, there you all are, and thank you for coming in and wanting to spend some time with us tonight right here on the Six Screens Telenetwork. Well, my name is Rick Farron, and I'm coming to you from the apostate capital of the world, right up here in Boston, Massachusetts. And, I'm not kidding around when I say it. I'm telling you, this is the apostate capital of the world, and we got the bragging rights. We really do. Well, if you want to go back to August 1st, 2nd, and 3rd, we had 350 apostates, opposers, critics of the Watchtower that showed up here right outside of Boston. And what a great time we all had. And I'll tell you what, if we ever have another convention like that, I want you to make your plans well in advance so that you can be with us. We had such a great time. It was so good to be with so many people of like mind. So I want to thank all those people that made the trek up here to Boston. Well, my goodness, it is starting to get a little colder out here. The last couple of days, we had some snow spitting, nothing on the ground, but a few flurries here or there and some snow squalls. But that seems to happen. But you know what happens when that happens? When it starts getting colder, we get more and more people come in and want to come in and talk and be with us every Saturday night right here on the Six Screens Network. And it is so neat to have a computer screen filled, telephone calls coming in from all over the world, really. And I know a lot of people on our telephone line. We call it our radio network as well. But I know a lot of them, they feel that's a more safe place to be. Well, I'm never going to report you to the Watchtower or the elders or anything like that, but people do feel safe, at least coming in on a telephone line. Some people don't feel safe on YouTube. They don't feel safe on Facebook, but they feel, for some reason, they feel safe on the telephone line. So thank you, though, for being on there. And if you never spoke up on the telephone line, why don't you try it tonight? Why don't you put an effort forward, muster up the courage, and come on our telephone line and talk tonight? That would be wonderful. Well, I'll tell you what, it amazes me to, after doing the news here for 20 years, it just totally amazes me of what's going on behind the curtains of the Watchtower. This is not the same organization that we all belong to. Well, Satan kicked me out of his organization 20 years ago. But, there's always residual feelings, thoughts that have been embedded in our mind. I mean, the Watchtower rented space in our head for so many years, right? You just can't flush it out. And even after 20 years, there's still some hidden residual junk that's left in my mind from the Watchtower. And probably you too. I mean, I've had people come on this program that have been out for 50 years, and they say, Rick, I can't shake it loose. So I wonder, what is the obsession? Why are we, activists at least, why are we so obsessed in exposing the Watchtower? Well, that's a good thought, right? And many of us are, and who wouldn't want to expose them? I mean, especially people that have lost their family, people who've lost loved ones for refusing blood transfusions, people that have been molested, sexually molested in the Watchtower. Who wouldn't want to expose this evil organization? Well, tonight we have a good show coming up. I think you'll enjoy it. In our 9 o'clock hour, we have a woman. She's a former Jehovah's Witness. Her name is Hadeska Agasani. Hadeska Agasani. Wow, that sounds like a Japanese name or African name, but no, it's not. She's American, and she changed her name. Yeah, she changed her name. She can't tell you why, but she wrote a number of books. In fact, she's got a book right now she's writing. I really love the title, The Back Room. Can you imagine that, The Back Room? Well, if you're listening to Hadeska tonight, she's going to ask you if you have any experiences in the back room. So if you had an experience in the back room when Hadeska comes on, by all means, why don't you call her up and say, hey, Hadeska, because she wants to put you in her book. If you have a good enough story, she'll put you in the book. So why don't you do your best to try to come on and be with Adaska when she comes on tonight? She'll be coming on somewhere around 9 o'clock tonight on our radio. Well, she'll be on our telephone line, but we're looking forward to her coming on. But let me get into the news here tonight. Let's see what's going on behind the curtains of the Watchtower. Well, I always report, and I have been doing it, talking about different countries coming down to the Watchtower. And, I counted 12 right now, but I'm going to have to kind of let Denmark go. I wasn't that happy with what I experienced this week about Denmark. Now, I've been bringing up that, well, Norway, Sweden, Japan, Slovakia, France, all of these countries, counted Belgium. I counted about a dozen, and I had Denmark in there, but I don't know, man. I am really a little frustrated with Denmark, and I'll tell you why. Well, they were investigating the Jehovah's Witnesses, and what Denmark did is they had, in the last couple of years, since 2023, they have had former Jehovah's Witnesses coming forward and telling the Denmark government of how they were treated so badly in the Watchtower, and how the Watchtower covered up their sexual child abuse and the shunning problems and all of the bad things that witnesses get deep into people's lives about. Well, these ex-witnesses were bringing it up to the Denmark government, and the Denmark government, I've been reporting here, has been looking into it and investigating the witnesses. But what really disappointed me just this week, on the November, well, it was about a week ago, November 24th, 2025, the ministry closed the inquiry into the Jehovah's Witnesses. And the minister who was heading up this inquiry, they had the microscope out on the witnesses. They were really looking into all of these people coming forward and saying how badly treated they were. At least the ministry, the government of Denmark, was looking into it, but they closed the case. Yeah, they closed the case this week. They're gonna cut the Jehovah's Witnesses slack. Yeah, they're not gonna. In fact, the minister, this really surprised me. The minister, the man in charge, who was overlooking the problems ex-witnesses were talking about, he says he had no sympathy. I mean, it's a terrible thing to say. This guy says they had no sympathy. He had no sympathy for the ex-witnesses. Now, that's a terrible thing to say. And I'm going to tell you why he said it. Just give me a few minutes. We'll get to that. But, to say that about people coming forward and saying they've been abused, people coming forward and saying they've been shunned, people coming forward and saying they lost their families, and this guy has no sympathy for them. I mean, that didn't make any sense to me. It's frustrating. I can't believe the leadership in Denmark can so brazenly, allow the witnesses to continue on and just throwing their hands up and saying, that's it, we're going to cut them some slack, let the witnesses go. Something's wrong with this. But anyways, the Jehovah's Witness media team, jw.org media team, we know they're going to spin this, right? We know that, well, they're going to tell all the people. It'll be on JW video. They'll come out with some news article about it and how the media was accusing, Jehovah's Witnesses, the national world media was accusing Jehovah's Witnesses of being so psychologically problemed and all the violence and the sex perverted acts in the Watchtower. Well, they're going to say they found us innocent. It's disgusting to me. It's disgusting to me. So I'm really wondering, why, in goodness name's sake, would Denmark, why would they cut the witnesses slack on this? Well, I got doing a little reading, a little research on it. And what I'm finding is the problem that the Denmark ministry, the government, is that they use what would be a sliding scale. Oh, a sliding scale. My goodness. Well, how is that affecting the outcome of Jehovah's Witnesses using a sliding scale? Well, let me put it this way too. And you guys, I know, because I know I got a very smart audience here. I think that you will agree that religion is so abusive. Now, not just the Jehovah's Witnesses, but in general, Jehovah's Witnesses, of course, they stand out as being one of the most evil, but really all religion. I think Joseph Rutherford might have been right when he said religion is a snare and a racket. Remember that? Well, see, Jehovah's Witnesses, even though their problems are way more surmountable than normal religions, religion doesn't have a good flavor these days. They all corrupt. No, I'm going to say they're all corrupt. I'm going to say they all have difficulties in hiding all kinds of issues and problems and always asking for money. So the Jehovah's Witnesses, at least in the not in the United Kingdom, but in Europe, at least in Europe, they are now being cut some slack because they don't seem to be that much different than other religions that the ministries of these foreign European governments have been looking into. But I mean, we do know they're a lot worse, right? So just to give you an idea, the EU, European human rights, they're taking a hands-off stance. They're not really going to do anything to the witnesses like Norway did, took their money away, not letting them be a registered religion in Norway. But Denmark's not going to follow suit. You know what's really difficult here, and religion's always got away with this, especially the Watchtower. They got away with this for years, talking about freedom of worship. Friends, that's the very First Amendment of the United States, right, of America, is you have the right to worship. You have freedom of worship. So governments, even in Europe, also have this right that's given to people. You can have freedom of worship. You can believe whatever you want. So that's why the governments kind of take a back seat to all of this. They don't want to get involved with it because I'll tell you what actually is the major thing here is freedom. And that's what really keeps these religions alive. These countries don't want to touch that freedom of religion with a 10-foot pole. So that's what's going on. So I'm disappointed with you, Denmark. I really, really am. I thought that maybe you could get on the side of us ex-witnesses and at least give a listening ear to what some of these ex-witnesses have been saying. So I thought that was kind of interesting. But, even though we have some of these governments like Denmark now cutting the witnesses slack, as we say, you know who isn't cutting the witnesses slack? A lot of elders are not cutting the witnesses slack. Oh my goodness, I cannot believe the information that's coming in here to the 6 screens about elders resigning. Have you heard anything about this? Am I the only guy talking about it? But I'm going to tell you, it's becoming monumental. I mean, serious. It's massive. Many Jehovah's Witness elders and ministerial servants are throwing the towel in. And the number one reason, really, I thought the number one reason would be because of the pedophilia. I'm sure that comes into play. But you know what a lot of elders are saying? They don't believe the Watchtower is the truth anymore. Now, when I first left the Jehovah's Witnesses and Satan kicked me out of his organization 20 years ago, that ran through my mind too. It's one of the very first things that ran through my mind. It's not the truth. The Watchtower, Jehovah's Witness organization, it's not the truth anymore. And I lost sleep over that. I mean, imagine being in the Watchtower for 20 years, 50 years. I was a witness for 50 years of my life. And imagine all in a short period of time, you find out how scandalous, how fraudulent, how deceptive the organization is. And, one of the first things that popped into my mind, just like a lot of the elders right now are feeling the same thing, it's not the truth anymore. And once you find out it's not the truth anymore, there's no reason to hang around with these people. There really isn't. And then what you do is you find, yes.
I'm sorry, I thought you were almost done, but the Watchtower was never the truth. They've been having false doctrines, false teachings ever since their beginning. It just keeps changing. So it's never been the truth.
Well, Larry, you're right with that. It's never been the truth. And I'm sure that's a really rock your boat too when you're getting out. It's not the truth. And when you find that, you find all the other flaws too.
Well, the thing is, it's not the Bible. But in the beginning, the Bible students were searching for truth.
Well, you're right, Pixie. As a matter of fact, when Rutherford came in and being the clown that he was, 250,000 Bible students said, that's it. We're not going to go along with this nut. So they left. And, they felt that they had more truth than what Rutherford was willing to offer them. So, but.
Right. He took over. He really took it.
So when you got out, though, Pixie, did that come into your mind at all? Or was it, it wasn't probably.
I come from a family of Bible students. They've been witnesses since way back, and having Charles Taze Russell's autograph in the family Bible and that sort of thing. And what struck me was sitting down and reading the Bible again, cover to cover, the second time. I had more questions than answers at that point. And then looking at the recent watchtowers where they had illustrations of the governing body at a table, and I said, well, where is the Christ in this picture? And in that cartoon illustration of how the organization is structured, Christ wasn't in the drawing. Things like that. And things like the Watchtower of 2 years ago, where they said, quote, your salvation is written in pencil, unquote. So these things I just can't go back. I just can't. And of course, the blood doctrine, the abuses, all these other things too. But looking doctrinally, it doesn't hold water. The boat's sinking. It does not hold water.
Oh, Pixie, you're absolutely right. And I'll tell you what, I'm getting numerous elders that are saying they're throwing the towel in. So I'm not going to call it a pandemic right now, but I'm going to call, I think I know what's doing it. I think one thing, it had to be that November 2025 Watchtower article that said that, the new system, Paradise Earth, Armageddon, would probably not be taking place in your lifetime. Now, many witnesses who were Jehovah's Witnesses for many years that were hearing this, including many elders, and saying, are you serious? I put all of my time and effort in this crazy religion, and now they're telling me it's not probably going to come in my lifetime. That is something that can knock a lot of elders off their high hat, off of their high stool, I should say, seriously. They'd be very disappointed. And, also, I'll tell you what's also happening. I have to tell you that I find, and I might be wrong with this, but at least I see it up in my neck of the woods. I find more and more people kind of getting together, having little parties, in the summertime, getting together for barbecues. And I just see more and more people walking down the street, like a group of people, like neighbors all walking together. And I'm saying, something, this is good. This is a good thing to see this. But the witnesses have hurt our relationship with so many people, and the elders are seeing this too. In fact, the one elder gave me information here this week. It got my attention. And one of the things really was causing him to leave is the fact that he had all these wonderful people, even though they were unbelieving, they weren't Jehovah's Witnesses, but they were so nice, many family members and relatives that for many years he wouldn't even have any contact with. And now he says, I just can't do this anymore. I just cannot do it anymore. And that's true.
You have to ask the question, who is the bad association too?
Yeah. And, these people are not. Yes, Stefan.
I just had a quick thought when you talked about how good people are. My father was extremely close to, passed away in 2000, and I was just devastated. I really didn't get any kind of support from the witnesses. My job told me to take a week off and, come back the following week. And when I did, one of the VPs walked up to me and said, "I was so sorry to hear about your dad. I know that he's been suffering, and at least his suffering's over. And our whole entire company wanted to let you know we were thinking about you." And then she handed me this envelope. And now, me being a witness, I had no idea what was in the envelope. I just thought it was a card that perhaps everybody signed. And so later, I opened it, and just all this money fell out. And I was completely dumbfounded. I was just sitting there thinking, what in the world are they giving me money? I just couldn't even understand that, because I'm a born-in Watchtower witness. We don't do things like that. Nobody's going to give you money and support you in any kind of financial way. But these people felt that way. So it's so true what you just said. Many of these so-called worldly people are some of the best people that you could ever have around you. Thanks.
Well, thank you for solidifying that, Stefan. And, the elders, the elders, they've had enough of this. They've given their life and soul, so much of their time, their money. They've done so much for the congregation, and they're finding, what's this all worth? Well, what am I really getting in return? Nothing but a slap on the back from time to time, always having to follow directions. So I'm not going to say it's a pandemic, like I said, but I'm going to say this is a great crowd of elders that are now leaving the organization. And it's really something that I find very good. And we all should find it good, because who are they going to get? Who's going to run these congregations? The Watchtower is in a pickle. They really are in a pickle. And a lot of young, they're doing everything they can to get elders being trained early. They're even appointing elders at 20 years old. We've talked about that numerous times here on the Six Screens. That's way too young. I had a man once that I really liked a lot. He worked for me, and he was one of Jehovah's Witnesses, and he was 80 years old. 80 years old, and I gave him a little part-time job, and he never really loved his wife, and he had a beautiful wife. She was a beautiful Jehovah's Witness lady, and she was in her 80s too. And what happened is they were having marital trouble. And I remember there was an elder in our congregation. He was 22 years old. And I remember this older man that was working with me came to me and he said, "Rick," he says, "can you imagine a 22-year-old whippersnapper guy coming up to my house to tell my 80-year-old wife and I how we should handle each other?" I mean, it really, I'll never forget him telling me about that. But think about it. Think about it. It's something that the witnesses, maybe they think it's okay. But I mean, would you like to be an older person being judged by some guy that just got out of diapers, so to speak? I mean, seriously. But friends, things are changing, and I found that.
The reason that the world had parish priests and the Catholic belief, and why the Methodists had theology schools, there's a reason why they had the clergy structure. And a lot of times I'll bash the clergy or say something, but in terms of a little community, there's reasons that these trained men were brought in to run these little churches back in the day. And the witnesses dropped the ball on that one, and they dropped the ball on the Sunday school idea, thinking everybody could take the same level of doctrine. There's reasons for thousands of years why some of this stuff was set up the way it was.
Well, I'll tell you, Pixie, in fact, that when you were on Anne Marie's program earlier, I heard you mention that the Nicene meeting going way back, where all the religious leaders came together and wanted to really establish Christianity. Now, this week, what we're saying is 1,700 years ago?
1,700 years ago, that's a long time ago.
Yeah. But, the witnesses aren't going to bring that up. They don't.
only people that disagreed, and they think that makes them right. And I used to believe that too. And then I looked at this meeting with the Pope mentioning this history fact, and I've looked at it before on my own, and I said, wait a minute. Just because the person is the underdog in this story doesn't mean they have it right.
Absolutely.
And that's when I went back and read the Bible again and looked at Bible Hub and some of these other translations, and I'm like, okay, I might throw religion out totally, or I might look at the Bible again. If I was going to be a Christian and believe something, you want to have the story straight. And the opera does not work if Jesus is not divine.
Well, it's interesting you bring that up. In fact, the Pope was, I saw him on the news earlier. So he's in Istanbul. And, he's got to be careful over there because of the Muslims, because so he's got to be very, very careful. And he was even advised to watch out because, you're going against, the whole world is not Christian or Catholic. You have people with different ideologies. But what it seems like this Pope is doing is he's trying to really mix faith together. Some are saying he might be the guy that brings about one world religion, but not to give too far off the track. But the reason why I bring
That's the plan. That they've written this down. It's not my opinion. This is what they're saying they want for the future.
Yeah, so I found it fascinating. And but the witnesses, they would never give credit to any other religion. Really, I mean, not that I'm giving credit to any religion either. I'm finding a lot of them. They're really, I mean, most of them, they want your money. They'll tell you anything you want to hear. There's a lot that I'm not really. I love Jesus. I'm a Christian man. I'm a follower of Christ, but I'm certainly not a follower of some man-made religion like the Watchtower. Okay, I don't want to get off. Yeah.
Hey, Leo's got the library. He knows the history. They're the ones that have all that stuff.
Yeah.
I'd love to get into that library. I really would.
But, in fact, even thinking about these elders that are leaving and all the information I'm getting in from elders here, but, I haven't really heard them leaving on theological grounds. It's all on mostly it has to do here with the idea that it's not the truth anymore. But there is some coming in here that said that's enough. I can't put up with the pedophilia. But the other thing too, when you stop and think about it, an elder is really overworked. They have a full-time job, and yet they have to be so considerate of the organization. They have to stop everything for Watchtower. I mean, if Watchtower says you're meeting this week, you have to give up whatever plans you have to meet. And if you don't meet, you're going to be weak and you might even be removed. This is how the Watchtower operates. But the point that I wanted to make here is there's going to be more and more elders just saying, I can't take this load anymore. I can't. And then also to see, what do you really tell your congregation when you see so many empty seats? You can't keep making up excuses. Well, the Smith family, they got the flu, or the Righteous family, they moved away. You can't keep making up stories. At some point, you're going to say, look, we don't have these seats filled because people are leaving the Watchtower. So the Watchtower is doing everything they can to make it look like people aren't leaving. They're closing congregations down. We talk about it all the time here. Then they merge them in with others to make it look like, wow, this is really prospering. But the elders, if you...
I asked her about the one-day assembly, and she said, well, the brother was on stage, and he says, read the Bible not to know, but to grow. Well, that's a cute slogan, but what does that mean? They don't give their people anything so that their people have meat in due season to be adults. And the elder has to take care of all these people that want to be led.
Well, that's exactly what's going on, Pixie. But let's move on. Let's talk about what else is happening here behind the curtains of the Watchtower. Well, we got good stories to talk about. I'm not going to get into this one right now, but I wanted to bring something up here that caught my attention. I want to see if you guys noticed it as well. Well, they're now talking about tattoos. We'll get into that a little later too. They're now saying that tattoos are being allowed, And at one time, it was a disfellowshipping case, but we'll talk about that in a little bit. But one thing that I wanted to bring up here, because I really started noticing this even when I was one of Jehovah's Witnesses, is, in every community, there's a wealthy community, the higher priced housing and beautiful homes and manicured lawns. And then also there's a poorer community. Now, up here in my territory, when I was a witness, I was the territory servant for a while. And of course, we have an area up here. It's like the poor side of town. In fact, they call it Tar Paper Village. Now, the reason why I got the name of Tar Paper Village, and everybody knew it, and people would kind of joke about it. It wasn't funny, but what it was years ago, Boston, of course, it was a big city, and about 20 miles north of Boston, there wasn't anything out here. So there was a lake in the Wilmington town. That's where the Kingdom Hall was. There was a lake, and they called it Silver Lake. And what happened years ago, in the 20s, 30s, people came out to Silver Lake as a little refuge from getting out of the city, and they would come out here and build a little camp. And they never would finish, the siding on the camp because it was just a camp. They only lived here in the summer, so they would put tar paper on it. And then, of course, many of them wouldn't even do the siding because when they finished the house, they'd have to pay more taxes. So it got the term Tar Paper Village. So I can remember, I'll tell you what, our Kingdom Hall, we had some pretty affluent areas too, but geez, I always seem to be preaching in Tar Paper Village. And then I got thinking to me, gee, am I overreacting here? Was that really the case? Because I can remember going to wealthy homes too, but more times I spent, walking the sidewalks of Tar Paper Village. And but I got thinking, see, the witnesses, they're doing everything they can and putting more effort into recruiting people. And I mentioned last week that immigration offices, where they process paperwork for the immigrants, what's showing up there in these federal buildings is Jehovah's Witnesses with their carts, and they're trying to peddle their belief system to many of these immigrants coming in and getting, their paperwork settled with the government. So they're preying on people that might have some difficulties in their life. Let's face it, an immigrant, they're not all coming here with big smiles on their faces. They love America, but it's a difficult thing. I know of many people that their families are still left back with the country they came from. So they get a lot of baggage, but anyone that can offer them any solace or peace in their life, they're going to gravitate to. And so there you have it. The witnesses are there. And so that's why and then also I started doing some research on this, and this seems to be a fact that they seem to be targeting these lower income areas. Now you say, well, is it fair that the witnesses do this? Well, that's what cults do. They try to get people at a very difficult time. Let's face it, in a poorer area, people are having a hard time paying their rent. They're having a hard time keeping their electricity on, buying food. And so consequently, someone shows up with a smile on their face. Who wouldn't want a friend in times of difficulty? That's when you want a friend. That's what the cults do. So this idea of witnessing in a poor area, I'd like to know, when you were a witness, did you find the same thing? Did you find yourself witnessing to the poor side of town more than the wealthy side? I'm just curious. What's your feelings on that? Anybody have any stories they can tell us? Let's face it. In fact, most of the people that were brought in to the organization, at least in the congregations I went to, came from the poorer side of town. And, because, the wealthier people, the witnesses, in fact, I remember them always saying this too. In fact, I can remember some witnesses even bringing up, why don't we, have this territory? Well, no, stay in the other territory. And the reason why they would do that is they would say that the people in the lower side of town, or the lower income people, were more receptive to the truth. They would be more interested in it than the wealthy people. What did you notice? Anybody out there?
Yeah, Rick.
Yeah.
I have something I noticed. It disturbed me. In the Cincinnati area, on the east side of town, there's a area called Indian Hill, and it is the richest by population area in all the state of Ohio, and it has the highest per capita college graduation, what do you call it, bachelor degrees, things like that, in the whole state of Ohio too. And that's primarily where we conduct our business, a home helping business, whatever. But guess who they assigned that whole territory to? The richest people, the smartest people, to the poorest black congregation. Yeah. And I talked to a brother, and of course there were a few white brothers there, and I talked to him about that. I said, why are you doing that? He was an elder in that congregation. I said, well, we were assigned to do it. I said, do you think that makes sense? You're offering them another treadmill other than the treadmill they're already on. You really think that's going to work? And I was just appalled at the stupidity of the organization. Because, you know, I knew a lot of people in this black congregation, primarily black, let's put it that way. And trust me, half of them couldn't teach first grade, kindergarten for that matter. So it was like, remember what Paul said? You're taking your fist and you're flailing it at the wind. And that's what Watchtower does most of the time, in my opinion. And that's one story, and that's all I got. Thank you so much, Rick.
Well, thank you, King of Dots. Always good to hear from you. My goodness. Who would like to speak up? Yeah, go ahead. Yep.
I just had a quick one. I was told a long time ago, and I know I was in California, but I can't remember exactly where. But I asked this brother about the ministry, and he looked at me with this look as if I was totally insane. He said, well, we don't really go out in the ministry. You know, we can't be knocking on people's doors that we're going to see at the country club or at the golf club or, you know, in Europe someplace when we're on vacation. We don't really do that, you know, here. And I was just so struck by that. But apparently the wealthy, really wealthy, rich witnesses, they don't go knocking on door to door. I don't know how they fulfill that obligation. Maybe they just give large donations with the thought that this can facilitate other people be missionaries or whatever the case is. But that's what I was told. I don't know if that's anybody else's experience.
Well, hello there. Hello, Rick.
Yes.
Hey, Rick. The last two calls, I think they were spot on. The last call, and Gary, King of Dots. I just want to. There's another dynamic to the poor, also in the immigrant community. What I see with my eyes, like my wife was talking to a Mexican from the Mexican American immigrant here at the house the other day, and she was visiting the sister, and he was asking about the Thanksgiving, and he goes, why do you we don't have that in Mexico? What is it all about, the day of the turkey? And so my wife starts explaining to him about the first Thanksgiving and how the Pilgrims and the Puritans, and his mind was exploding. Now, this is a staunch Jehovah's Witness, and in the Spanish communities, the Jehovah's Witnesses propagate no assimilation into the existing country of the United States also. So not only are they perpetually always ignorant of the American customs, but they do go out for people who don't understand the country and are a little bit on the poorer side. So not only what you're saying is true, but also ignorant of the American customs. I see those two dynamics. Poor financially, yes, but also not assimilated into the American way of life. So those are easy catches in the Spanish congregations.
Well, thank you for sharing that, Jesse. Yeah, go ahead, sir. You're on with us. Go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Jesse. Okay, so I remember when I first came in back in the late 70s, like 79, 80. I was baptized in 80. And the magazines were still not really high quality printed. You had a lot of the fancy printing wasn't put forth, but most of it catered to your basic neighborly looking people. I mean, they did throw a few immigrants in there once in a while and stuff like that, but they were mostly pictures of people that you were kind of similar to, like your neighbors and stuff like that, look more like you, you know. Then all of a sudden, it seemed like maybe about midway through the 80s, around 90s, they started blowing out all these colored magazines and then all color. And then I noticed they were putting all kind of different races of people in there. Not even Americans anymore. They were all from India or whatever. So I figured right there they were beginning to, like maybe in the late 80s, they started targeting the immigrants more. They don't even care about us Polacks and Polish people and stuff anymore. You know what I'm saying? We're just a bunch of Polacks to them.
Well, yeah, but they still want to witness the Polish people too. But I know what you're saying. They could see something coming, and they started.
Polish people are too smart. Polish people are too smart. No, I hope so, man. I sure do. But yeah. So it just seems like they're doing whatever they can do to just keep on getting as many people in there as they can. And I think it's obvious that immigrants would be the target because, like you said, they're poor or whatever, some of them, and then some of them are looking to integrate a little bit, and this is the way to integrate. And for them, it's probably a good thing. If you could tell everybody go in there for like 4 years and then bail, everybody probably have a better life. But it's the longevity thing that gets you. If you're there 40 or 50 years and then you're like, then they tell you, well, we don't really think it's going to, we hate to tell you this. Come here a minute. This ain't going to happen. Maybe it might not happen in your lifetime, you know?
Well,
like, that's a lot of, I'm still thinking there's a way we can all go down there and get the records and prove that we pioneered for a couple of years and then get paid for that. Wouldn't that put them down? What if we all got paid for all those hours we put in?
well,
I pioneered for 2 years.
Yeah, pioneered for 2 years. It gave a lot of your time, a lot of your effort. And what do you get for it, brother? Nothing, right?
Well, you get beat up. You get like, oh, we heard you was in the bar dancing or something like that. You're like, what? I don't do that. I'm a pioneer.
Yeah.
But anyway,
well,
start spreading news.
Well, thank you. Now, you've been calling in here before. Are you new here?
No, it's Marty.
Marty, right? No, I recognize the voice. Yeah, thank you, Marty. Well,
3 times.
Thank you, Marty, for coming in. I appreciate it.
Yeah. Okay.
Well, thank you very much. Yeah, no, in fact, Marty's right on with that and talking about the poor areas, rich areas. But whenever I'll tell you what, and you guys probably also witnessed this as well. But how many times would you be out in service, driving around, making return visits or whatever, and you see a really nice, beautiful house? I mean, really a beautiful house. And then how many times have you heard a witness say in the car, I'm going to get that house after Armageddon? I've heard that so much. It used to drive me nuts because I used to even think, I remember even saying to one of the brothers, well, in fact, it was a sister. I said, well, what makes you think you're going to be there first? Don't you think other witnesses would want that house too? I mean, what are you going to do? Hit each other with a stick to have it? So, I mean, but here it is that maybe they wanted to keep you out of the rich neighborhood so you wouldn't see how the affluent lifestyle was pretty good. A lot of these people living high off the hog, so to speak, they already said their paradise was here. They didn't have to look forward to a new system.
One time we were out in service and they were looking at a house and the sister said, that's going to be my house. It was my uncle's house.
Yeah, well, we've all heard that, but you just got me thinking as I'm talking here. Maybe that's why we didn't always get the affluent areas, because I was the territory servant. But for some reason, everyone always wanted to work. It was like some type of it wasn't a schedule, but it seemed like everyone always asked for, tar paper village, the area that was really the lower income place. I guess people felt more comfortable there. And I guess even you think the elders would say, let's split this up. Let's make sure we work all these areas and make sure it's done in the way it's supposed to be done. But maybe the elders didn't want you going into these rich areas because it would give ideas to the witnesses. because these people would work and they'd have good careers. They went to school, they got educated, they got good jobs, they made good income, and they were able to afford the little accoutrements of life. But geez, what can a witness do? What can a witness do? It's
Once you can compare,
yeah,
once you know, you know.
yeah. Well, Pixie, that's what that thought just came to me. Maybe they didn't want you to compare. They keep you in the poor side of town. But if it's a known fact, I mean, a lot of the people, most of the people in the Kingdom Halls I've gone to, most of the people were poor. I mean, not dirt poor, but they were poor. But I'm sure there's many listening to
Well,
the.
we had kind of a fancy little Kingdom Hall in a nice little neighborhood there, and this was back when that young elder tried to push my dad out of responsibility and hated me. And little me, about 100 pounds soaking wet on a good day, and he didn't like my boots, and my dress was too long, and my skinny ballet body that had no cleavage, my blouse wasn't right, and he just had all these problems with me. And then he says, well, I bet you're going out in service today. I said, well, yeah, I dressed for service. I put this dress on to go into service. He says, okay, I'll take you and the other teenagers out down by the bowling alley. We never place anything there. So I walked up to this one house, and it was kind of fallen down, but it had a nice porch. And I said, oh, this is a kind of porch I like, and knocked on the door. Nobody was home. He said, see, nobody's home. We're not going to place anything here today. I said, what about the apartment across the street? They need to hear the gospel too. So we went over there, and little me, I knocked on the door, and I placed 2 magazines and a book. And he says, how'd you do that? I said, just leave me alone.
Well, I don't know about your cog.
Hello?
Yeah, is that you, Junction guy?
No, this is 970.
Oh, 97 Joe. Go ahead, Joe.
No, this is didn't give you my name, but just say 970.
Oh, 970. Okay, good. Thank you. That's fine. Yep.
Well, I have a story. When I was a young boy, we were living in a town called Tonopah, Nevada. You ever heard of Tonopah, Nevada? Little gold mining town, old mining town.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, we would go out in service, and my family, we're middle class, and we were living in a small mining town, and we'd go out to a service, and we'd come up to these shacks, and in my mind, I'm going like, wow, does anybody really live here, And people did, and I guess my point is, that's when I learned what poor was in my life. And the children that came to school, some of the children in the class didn't smell so well, and I wondered why their parents didn't take good care of them. That's when I learned what poor was in my life.
Well, that's interesting. That's interesting. That's something 970 that you brought that up, because I'll tell you what, I met some of the poorest people myself. I couldn't even believe it out in service. And I remember I knocked on this door. It was in a country area, but a poor area. And it was an old house. And boy, I went in, and the woman was burning coal. And coal really stinks, when you burn it in the stove. And it was, I think it was around Christmas time. And the poor woman, she was so poor. She had no food in the house. I couldn't believe it. And she had no food. And, oh, it was terrible. The house was so messy. And she was just not right. But she said she was so hungry. So I don't know what to do. But I never witnessed this before in my life until I was out in service. So I went down and bought her a bag of groceries so she could eat. But I'm saying people are really this poor. And of course, the witnesses, they would love to have someone come in the so-called truth like that, even though there were some elders that didn't like it. But you can always tell a good story how these poor people came in and became rich with spirituality, poor in money, but rich in spirituality. And then they did make a big story about it. Probably have a walk up during the convention sometime and tell her story. But that's interesting. You bring that up, 907. I agree with you. I learned a lot about poverty myself, going door to door, You wouldn't believe people can live some of the ways they do. Well, thank you for checking in with us. So, anybody else? What do you want to say? Go ahead. All right. Well, let's move on here. Let's let me just see something here that I wanted to go back on. People I see there, someone's out there saying they bet you Rick has a tattoo in the chat. I don't have a tattoo. Never got a tattoo, but I got news for you. Tattoos now seem to be a personal decision in the Jehovah's Witness religion. Now, some are saying, well, Rick, no, you can never be disfellowship for a tattoo. That's not the truth. I know a person that was disfellowship for having a tattoo. So maybe some congregations taught it a little different, but you could. In fact, a number of people I know were actually severely reprimanded, or in fact even disfellowship, if you had a tattoo. But why do you think now the witnesses are kind of going light? The Watchtower itself is lightening up on tattoos, and now you can also toast, and you can wear, more conservative, no, well, not conservative, but more liberal clothing, so to speak. Well, why are they doing that, you think? Well, tattoos right now are big. I can't believe how big tattoos are. It just amazes me. A tattoo is a tattoo, and I can see a person getting a little tattoo on their arm, or a lady getting a little butterfly on her legs or something. But my goodness, the tattoos. I don't know about in your neck of the woods, but the tattoos, it's like people just walked out of the circus. I'm saying to you, is this for real or what? I mean, I don't want to sound like an old fogey here, but boy, oh boy, not only that, tattoos are very expensive. And some of these people are just, and in fact, even up here, it's getting colder. I see people still wanting to wear shorts so they can show their tattoos off. And so also I'm getting information coming into the 6 screens that a lot of Jehovah's Witnesses have tattoos. They're just, kind of afraid to show them. But as of late here, within the last month, there seems to be a little let up. Now, the Watchtower hasn't come out on jw.org or anything and said, hey, you can have a tattoo. But something that was given to me this week was concerning a fellow that had his mother was a PME, a full witness. She was still deep in the witness world. And he brought up the subject of tattoos to his PME mother. And his mother said that, oh, that's a personal matter. It always has been. No, it hasn't been. It hasn't been always a personal matter, like I say. So, but I bet you that, well, I don't want to bet, but I would at least think that 50% of the witnesses have tattoos. I would say probably even more, especially the women. The women, they love the tattoos. So, and then, it's only a matter of time, too, when the witnesses are going to say, well, you like purple hair? You like orange hair? How about that turquoise hair? You like that? Well, go ahead. Did you know that hair dye, they had a CEO from Walmart on TV not too long ago, and they asked the CEO of Walmart, what's the most popular product in your store? Well, what do you sell the most of? And you know what he said? We sell more hair dye than anything. That's why we can't keep it on the shelf. Purple, orange, turquoise, pink. It's in. I mean, I'm not a fan of it. I mean, maybe if you get the right skin color, you could get away with a little pink or maybe a little tiny bit of turquoise. But my goodness, I'm seeing people up here. They orange hair, green hair. Oh, I mean, it doesn't really make a person look attractive. I mean, maybe you would think so, but I don't see it. But it's only a matter of time. And I think the witnesses will say, fine, just do what you want. It's getting to that point. But boy, I'll tell you what, in fact, what's of interest is many people are commenting, not only on our program here, but I've been reading it on Reddit and other areas of the witnesses looking so disheveled. As a matter of fact, I was reading some information about a very prominent elder that gave talks at conventions. And boy, they seen him on the street. He looked like a homeless man. So, whatever happened to that pristine look that the Jehovah's Witnesses had? Didn't you like that? When you were a witness, you dressed up, you put your suit on, you polished up your shoes, you slicked back your hair, and boy, you were Mr. Elite. And the women wear a nice dress, nice little heels. Their hair was done up. They put some makeup on. Geez, we looked like we were on top of the mountain, right? But that's all gone. Now you can't even tell them.
Look like that now. That costs a fortune to have a gentleman's suit now, or a dress starts at $120 at a Talbot's, and you go to the thrift store and try to copy that. The thrifts are all picked over now. People are reselling on Etsy from the thrift.
Oh well, Pig. I'm glad you brought that up, Pixie. 'Cause I'll tell you what, the convention that we had up here for the ex-witnesses back in August, and I had to look good. I wanted to get a new suit or two. So there's not many places around that even sell suits, but there's a place. It's called Joseph Banks, and it's a men's.
Yes, right.
It's a men's clothing store. So I went in there to buy a suit, and I talked to the salesman. He says, "Boy," he says, "I'm glad you came in today." He said, "We don't get many people coming in here anymore." I says, "You don't? You have some really nice clothing here." He says, "Yeah, no, people don't wear suits anymore." He says, "They don't, even businessmen and what have you." He says, "It used to be way bigger." In fact, he says, "Now you came in here a couple of years ago, didn't you?" I says, "Yeah." He says, "Yeah, have you noticed our store got smaller?" He says, "It's not as big as it was." I said, "Wow, I noticed that." He said, "Yeah, we had twice the size of the store, but they went bankrupt a couple of years ago, and just men aren't buying suits like they used to." Yeah, so I'm sure it's even happening in dresses. I mean, when's the last time you even see a lady in a dress? I mean, the witnesses.
The dress is about $120 new.
Yeah.
Walmart had some skirts this week, but they are the micro mini skirt for the young people, the cute little teens. The extra short skirts are back. If you're 30 years old and up, you're not going to wear that.
No. So I'm thinking that the Watchtower, they have to make changes, but the problem is they haven't made changes for so long that everything became traditional. Everything was so deep into their history that they couldn't make changes, but they had to do it recently because of the tide is turning. I mean, men with beards, as we talked about that so many times. Beards are in. Casual clothing is in. Tattoos are in. So they gotta go with the flow, and they're trying to get new people. And who in their right mind wants to become? What benefit are they going to have if they become one of Jehovah's Witnesses and have to go out and buy a brand new wardrobe? It's too expensive for them, for one thing, and not only that, it's just not in. It's not the in thing right now. So
The only people wearing the suits now would be a law firm. Joseph A. Banks would have a few attorneys come in there. That would be it.
Yeah, that'd be about it, Pixie. Well, anyways, things are changing. Things are changing. But I wanted to bring this up, and we do have a guest coming on at 9:00. You don't want to miss this guest coming on at 9:00. Well, she's writing. She's already wrote. She got 2 books already written. She's got a new book. It's called The Back Room. Ah, boy, we have to hear from this woman. She's going to be coming on at 9:00. She's a former Jehovah's Witness, and she's going to tell us why she left the so-called truth. So 9:00, in about a half hour. But there's another story I wanted to talk about here tonight because, for many years here on the 6 Screens, I covered a lot of stories. I mean, back 20 years ago, there really wasn't much to talk about. The Watchtower had a way better image. Today, their image is tarnished. But back 20 years ago, at least there was always good news about the witnesses. They would come into the conventions during summer, and the Commerce Department in the towns and cities would love to have the witnesses come in because, boy, they brought money into the restaurants and the hotels, and they spent money all over the city. And that's all you really read about. You didn't really hear too much bad about the witnesses. But, boy, I'll tell you, it all started about 15 years ago with the sexual abuse problems. And boy, I'll tell you, just escalated into today. It's nothing but you punch Jehovah's Witnesses into AI or into Google search, and all you get is negative, critical information about the Jehovah's Witnesses. But reporting this program for as many years as I have, I came across this story this week. As a matter of fact, I want to thank the person who sent me the email. I'm sure some of you folks have already heard about this, but I want to thank this person that sent me this email. They sent it to me anonymously. I do not know who it was that sent me this, but whoever it was, if you're listening in, thank you. I want to share this email with my audience tonight. And some may have heard of it. It's been on the news, I'm sure. But I actually was given the court order, the directive that was actually given to the court concerning a suit against the Watchtower. And let me tell you a little bit about that suit. Well, of course, the suit was filed in New York City. And by all means here, the Watchtower of Pennsylvania, the Watchtower and Tract Society of Pennsylvania, Watchtower Society of New York, as well as Brazil, branch office of Brazil, and the governing body are all on the hook here. They're defendants in a case that took place in Brazil. Now listen to this, because this really is a terrible story. And I wanted to share it with you tonight just to show you how evil and how corrupt and deceptive the Watchtower organization is. And, as I always say, I don't have a soft spot from the top of my head to the bottom of my feet for the Watchtower organization. So a man in Sao Paulo, Brazil, a circuit overseer of the Jehovah's Witnesses, a circuit overseer, that's pretty much up there, right? And he's being identified here in the newspaper, or at least in the court summons, as a senior minister who was entrusted with supervising multiple congregations. And he is listed as a defendant for gross negligence and intentional cover-up. The Watchtower here is also being sued for intentional cover-up of this circuit overseer. So I want to talk a little bit about this. I want to have your thoughts on it as well. But anyways, the circuit overseer, his name is, his last name is Rovizo, and he was in Brazil, and he is the main culprit here, Rovizo, Brother Rovizo. And then we also have the one who's filing the complaint. Her name is Miss Souza, Souza. So she's filing the complaint against Rosio, and is beginning all of these sexual problems started for Miss Souza back in 2011. And just to give you an idea, this Rosio, a circuit overseer, he started looking at Miss Souza in the very Kingdom Hall when he would visit it. And he really started thinking that he might be able to do some nasty things to her. So he used his position as circuit overseer to isolate, groom, and control Miss Souza. So, that happens, friends. Not only in the witness world, but it's more prevalent in the witness world. But a person in a prominent position will use their status to have total control over a young person, sometimes even over an older person. Now what Rosio would do is he would subject the young girl. What he would do is he would expose her to undress. He would have her undress, I should say. He would expose her to sexual violence. He would masturbate in front of her. And then he would also force her, as a young girl, only 12 years old, to watch pornography and raping her on a weekly basis. This is all in the court paperwork that was sent to me. And I want to, again, thank the person for sending it to me. It was quite graphic. I'm not going to read it all to you. But Rovizo raped Miss Souza in the Kingdom Hall when he visited her. And he also, on several occasions, raped Miss Souza inside the assembly hall of Jehovah's Witnesses in Maraparo, Brazil. So we have a man here that is a real perverted maniac, really. And he would actually, can you imagine now, during an assembly, and the circuit overseer is in the back room raping a young sister? And the people would be listening to the assembly, and this is all going on in the assembly hall, and yet this is going on in the back room. And he would say to Miss Souza, he would say, "You have to be silent. And if you're not silent, we're going to have all the congregants and your whole family. They won't talk to you." So really put young Miss Souza in a very difficult place. I mean, really, I read these stories. Every week I come across perversion in the Watchtower. But sometimes what's that?
Stop this up just for a minute.
Yeah, go ahead.
Stop this up for a second.
Yeah, go ahead.
Maybe that's why the brothers don't have to wear suits anymore, because they already have too many suits. You know what I mean? Like a lawsuit.
Well, yeah, well, that's a good point. That's a good point. Yes, in fact, but I mean, this is just absolutely unbelievable what was going on with this young girl, and to actually have this happen in a Kingdom Hall. I mean, what type of a predator? What type of a creep? I mean, it's bad enough thinking about raping a young person, but in the confines of a Kingdom Hall, in the confines of an assembly hall. That's why I wanted to bring this up tonight, friends. So, well, what I'm saying to you, if you're listening on here tonight, and you are a
12-year-old's in 6th grade.
Yeah. Well, what we have here, Pixie, I want to tell the people out here tonight, if you're a witness and we have them listening in, we have active witnesses listening in and starting to doubt the Watchtower. Don't trust your kids, even to a circuit overseer or anybody. So what we have.
Under the jail, not in the jail. He needs to be under the jail.
Yeah. So Rovio's abuse and his repeated rapes culminated. Now get this. Miss Souza became pregnant. The young girl became pregnant. And I'll tell you, she was only 13 years old. She became pregnant. She began drinking. She began exercising excessively. Someone's got their could someone shut their TV off in the background? Okay. Okay, hold on one second. We got to shut the TV off in the background, okay? Then I'll bring it on. You have to mute it because of it echoes here. And I can't quite think straight. So anyways, let's go back. So Miss Souza, who's being raped by the circuit overseer, she begins drinking, and she's now exercising excessively, thinking it might hide her pregnancy. She doesn't know what to do. She's a 13-year-old girl, and now she's pregnant. So in January of 2012, at 13 years old, Miss Souza had a miscarriage in her home bathroom. She had and nobody took her to the hospital. Oh, what a poor young girl. I mean, your heart's going to go out for her. Now,
could you imagine being impregnated by your circuit overseer? For God's sakes, I mean,
it's unbelievable. That's why I had to read this story to you tonight. I had to. I mean, there's more to it. I'm not going to go into it all, but that's not all. It doesn't even end there. So now you have a girl that became pregnant by her circuit overseer. She tried to keep it secret. She miscarried the baby, 13 years old, in her own bathroom. And now the whole story gets complicated. You say, well, how much worse can it actually even get? Well, it gets even worse. So now what we have, yes.
This is Craig from Florida. We met. You know who I am.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I don't mean to interrupt you. I downloaded this motion, and it brought nothing but anger And I am not an advocate, as you know, for Jehovah's Witnesses because I disassociated 35 years ago. But when you use language like this man did this, this, and this, in the United States, we have a saying, someone is innocent until proven guilty. Would it not be more appropriate, and I'm not defending this man because in my heart, he's probably guilty, but would it not be appropriate and legal to say he's alleged to have done this? Because what if through the court system, it was found out this is a lie and it was fabricated? His name would be defaced and it would be slander. So should you not, and I suggest this, use the word alleged?
Well, you're absolutely right with that. You're absolutely right. However, I think the motion would serve itself, but it would be best if I did.
You're trying him without a judge and jury. You're trying him in the court of public opinion. And I'm not defending him. I'm putting myself in his place.
Yeah.
In the United States, you are innocent until proven guilty. And this was filed in the U.S. courts.
If you hear something on the news, okay? If you hear something on the news, it doesn't matter where the information comes from, as long as it's accurate. If you hear it on the news, what are you going to do? If you tell somebody about it, are you going to get sued for that?
What you heard of the Russian collusion or with Trump? That turned out to be false. Just because you hear it on the news doesn't mean it's true. Come on,
that's true.
Wake up.
What Rick's saying is true. That's the question. Is if he's got a news report that is actually accurate, then I think people should know about it.
Well, yes, we should know about it because I downloaded it. He is appropriate, and I want him to talk about it, but I'm not to use the language that he's guilty. Let's just say he's alleged to have done this. Let us wait until the court of law finds him guilty because he said this man did this, this, and this. No, he's alleged. Use the word alleged.
Well,
yeah, that's true. Well, basically, what we're talking about here is just we're guiding people to see what can happen in the Jehovah's Witnesses organization.
And I believe there's cover-up. The Australian Royal Commission shows there's cover-up of 1,006 reported incidences that were never reported to. I understand that. But this man, all I'm saying is I like to look at things from a litigious standpoint and let the law of the land find a person guilty, not the court of public opinion.
But we're not putting our attention on the person themselves. We're putting our attention on what could possibly, what does happen in the Jehovah's Witnesses, which is just unbelievable.
I agree. I detest the Jehovah's Witness cult and the leadership of the governing body. I was in it for 35 years. I understand that there's cover-up. I understand that there's pedophilia issues and problems. I understand it. But don't condemn the man without a trial.
Well, hold on one second, Greg. No, I appreciate you saying that. And I'll call him alleged, even though I have a hard time doing it. But I'll call him alleged. He hasn't been. So we'll call him alleged for the purposes of.
In my heart, do I feel he's guilty? Yeah, in my heart, but I wouldn't use that in a public forum.
All right. No, in fact, I'll stand corrected with that. But let's just, for the record, as the brother was even saying, if I haven't heard this before, I definitely would have cut more slack to this particular person. But when you stop and think about it, every single week we report about an act of pedophilia, a sexual misconduct in the witness world. So when you read something like this and you have the motion, which you read as well. Now in the motion, I don't believe, a court motion is a legal document. And it's stating what this person did. The plaintiff, is stating what the defendants did, and it's her word against.
Well, maybe you just shouldn't use their name.
Did you read the defendant's motion against the plaintiff's motion? Did you read that? No, I haven't.
I would just say don't use.
Well, that's until
the trial is determined by the judge.
Right, you don't have to use people's names either. You can leave that out and just tell the story. It's just as effective. You don't need a person's name. You know what I'm saying? That's all.
Well, the reason why I use people's names here in the 6 screens is, there's other people that might be listening to this broadcast that had the same thing happen to them by the same man. That's a possibility.
Sure.
And that's, and so it's only, I'm just putting a warning out. That's happened here before in the 6
Yes, sir.
screens. What's that?
Rick, I love you with all my heart. I truly appreciate all that you do. I'm not sticking. Jehovah's Witnesses are so guilty of pedophilia, cover-up cases. The lawsuits in the world speak for themselves. All I'm saying is that whether it be this man or any man or me, I would want people to judge me not before the case, but after the trial if I'm found guilty. That's all. And use the word, I suggest, with respect, alleged. He's alleged to have done this because you said he did this, and this. We don't know.
Oh, well, you're right with that. I stand corrected. I redact that. I will take that back. I stand corrected on that. You're right. That's how it should have been presented. But thank you. Thank you. All right.
I love you, brother Rick, and my tone or whatever. I've been involved in litigious matters with my ex-wife, the Jehovah's Witnesses, even, and I'm sensitive to this area. So my tone or frustration is, I want people to hear both sides rather than being predisposition.
Well, no, that
or my tone.
yeah.
It's all good.
Oh no, it's nothing. There's nothing wrong with what you said, Greg. Nothing at all. Because really, if we were put in that position, we would like to at least come out with some type of a defense before accused.
Brother Rick.
All right, I'm with
That's
you.
what I'm saying.
All right, I'm with you. No, I'm with you.
We love you, man.
Yeah, thank you.
I love you, Rick.
Well, love you too down there. Really well. Thank you.
We love you, man.
Well, thank you. Well, isn't it good? Isn't it good? Now look at, in life, what's really good. See, this is a community. We're all friends. We can talk to each other. We can all be corrected. Many of us can say things sometimes and jest or not really think about what we're saying. So I get that part of it. I'm certainly appreciative of that. And I'm going to be careful in the future to make sure that it's alleged because
Hey, Rick,
yes.
what does the bottom of that page say? I want to know if he came to trial or not. I want to know if the judge threw the book at him. What's the last sentence on the document?
Yeah. Well, we'll know more about it. It's going to be a while. In the court cases, I mean, the motion was just filed recently, so it's going to be probably a year before you even hear anything.
True.
Yeah. All right.
Doesn't look good. 13-year-olds don't make stuff up.
Boy, I'll tell you.
12-year-olds, they're pretty sexy, It's probably true.
Yeah, but I mean, you don't want to say something like that, brother. It's, you shouldn't be looking at 12-year-old girls, seriously.
No, it's a joke.
I know.
It's a sick joke.
All right. Well, anybody else have any thoughts on this at all? But the point I wanted to make, what got me thinking, I've read elders, ministerial servants, Jehovah's Witness men, but I'll tell you, in all my 20 years of reporting here on 6 screens, never have I come across an alleged circuit overseer of committing these type of acts. But again, we'll let the court find out, and we'll probably know in a year or so what took place. But boy, can you imagine? Plus, on this motion,
You
go ahead.
come home from a Sunday meeting. You come home from a Sunday morning meeting. You sit down with your parents and you say, "Mom and Dad, I have something to tell you." And they say, "What is it, honey?" And you say, "I'm pregnant." And they say, "Who's the father?" And you tell them the circuit overseer. Oh my gosh.
Well, yeah, but wait a minute.
Just mind-boggling.
Well, Marty, wait a minute now. Just hold on for a second. Do you really? Okay, so I mean, I'm just hypothesizing here. I don't know, but so the young girl comes home. It could be. It doesn't have to be this particular case here. But a young girl comes home. She's pregnant. The parents find out. Her mother and father are staunch witnesses, and they find out the circuit overseer is the one that actually is the father of the baby. Now, how do you think most witnesses would react to that if they were? What would they say? What would they say, Marty?
They'd have to come up with something from the pulpit to kind of cover it over, like, well, We thought they were going to get married. We didn't know he was that old, and we thought she was older.
Yeah, I mean, not,
Yeah. Right.
well, not to kid or make jokes out of it, but
I think you mentioned it's Brazil. So I don't know what the laws are in Brazil, but again, this girl would be the equivalent of a sixth grade elementary school student.
Right, right.
And so that it gets all the more perverse, sick, and sad. And then for a girl that's just started knowing what periods are to get pregnant and lose a baby, this is unheard of. It's so terrible. And where are the parents? And how did he meet this girl? And who's trusting their child with the circuit overseer to the assembly hall?
Good point. Yeah. You know, when you're a kid, when you're a child, life is supposed to be like heaven. You're supposed to feel, because, you're going to lose it later, because, it's just going to turn to hell later with all the work you got to do. So, but when you're a kid, you're supposed to be experiencing like a heavenly thing, where life is beautiful. And, man, that's just.
well, let's just get let's get back to this. I mean, I'm just thinking out loud. What the parents would they were witness parents. It wouldn't faze them one bit. Oh, well, honey, we want to keep it in Jehovah's hands, and he's a circuit overseer, and he's a really nice man. I mean, you know how they spin it. Did someone want to say something? Go ahead.
Hello, Rick.
Oh, yes.
Hey, Rick, this is JP.
Let's go with JP.
Yeah,
then
I was going to say that.
I'll go ahead, JP. Then we'll go to Maverick.
Say that
Go ahead.
I was going to say, Rick, that you are allowed to say the person who's accused name, their charges, and give your opinion about them without having any repercussion. Because when the Pennsylvania 16, remember those 16 men that were Jehovah's Witnesses, the district attorney went on TV. She said all their names, what they were charged with, and how disgusting it was. And that was before they went to trial and were accused. And the reason why you say their name and say what they did is because if there's any more victims out there, they have the courage to come forward and they know that somebody is working on their case. So there's certainly not anything wrong with saying the name or even giving your opinion on it. That has nothing to do whether they're proven guilty or not when they go to trial. So that's all I wanted to say.
All right, JP. Well, thank you for that information. Maverick from London. Go ahead, Maverick.
Hi, Rick. Yeah, I just wanted to say the 12-year-old girl here, I was curious to, all the information will probably eventually come out, but how long it would have taken, how much courage it would have taken even for that little girl to even speak to her family about this. I mean, how impossibly difficult it would have been for anyone who's gone through something as horrific as that. You're traumatized. That's a little girl. If this allegedly is a true case, the facts will come out eventually in the court, how hard must it have been for her to even speak to her parents about it? I mean, most people who go through this kind of abusive situations, but it takes them a lifetime to take the courage to even speak out when they're in their adult life. So we don't know how long it took her to speak about it. Obviously, if this miscarriage was happened, they would have found out from then, and then all of the questions would have come after. How did this happen? What's going on? But for her to, obviously the witnesses, depending on their parents' disposition, maybe the disposition of the parents is very. I mean, as a father, you'd be absolutely furious. If you found out. I mean, if it was me, I'd go there. I would believe my daughter. If she had the courage to speak out.
Oh, it's horrific. I mean, there's difficulties in life, but boy, this young girl, what she had to put up with, and then I didn't even get into the rest of the story. After she was allegedly abused by this man, a circuit overseer, she was also abused by another man in the congregation. I mean, it just went on, and this poor girl. I hope that things can become more peaceful in her life and she can live a normal life. But the thing that really caught my attention is she She named as defendants the Watchtower Bible and Tract Society of Pennsylvania, the Watchtower Bible and Tract Society of New York, and also the governing body. So they're also on the hook here. And she, in the motion, is saying that they, were totally aware of it, which states in the motion that they were, and only time will tell. We'll see what happens. But thank you, Maverick. Thank you for bringing that up. Okay, do we want, okay, we have, is that you, Dick, Constance?
Yes. Hi, Rick. It's Constance. I was going to say, the story is horrific. And when a child is 12 years of age, she's still a child. Here in America, first of all, that would be considered statutory rape. Any child that's under the age of from 17 on down is statutory rape, and she was literally just a child, let alone, he's a sick pig pedophile is what he is. And Rick, what I was going to say, in the congregation, elders are always revered, and circuit overseers are even more revered. And the point I'd like to make is, so much for where was God's Holy Spirit in anointing this brother who was so-called a circuit overseer who was raping this child. So it's very, very sick. I mean, it just, for witnesses that are listening, they really need to understand that this organization does not have God's Holy Spirit, period. And this is not, the only case ever. I hope this little girl can recover from this with a lot of therapy. I hope and I pray that her parents will believe her and they don't, disown her trying to say that she's a liar. When you're a little girl and you're just prepubescent, that word's very hard to say, before you start having your menstruation, obviously she was able to have her periods because she got pregnant. I mean, what a horrific experience to find out that, you're using the restroom one day and then, the baby slips out in the toilet. I mean, that's what happened in this story. And, it's life altering. I mean, she's just a little girl growing up, revering the elders because, of course, everyone in the congregation reveres the circuit overseer in this case. And yet he groomed her. He was just a total pig who groomed her. And it just goes to show how sick the organization is and how sick this circuit overseer was. It's supposed to have Jehovah's Holy Spirit. Did you want to say something? No? Okay. So that's what I wanted to say. I hope she's able to recover, and I hope she's able to get justice with regards to this. But the circuit overseer is not the only pig that's in the organization, Rick. There's plenty of them out there. And for JWs, they really need to pay attention. I mean, we're certainly not lying about this. And just because they're JWs, doesn't necessarily mean you can trust them. There are so many sick people in this organization that are raping children. So you want to say something?
It never dawned on you that the problem might be groups of people just getting into groups. I mean, aren't people much better when they just function? Everybody functions by themselves. You go here, you go there, you mind your own business. Then you start getting 2 or 3 people together, 4 people, and then the problems start. It's like, yeah, the bigger the organization is, the goofier it is. And now it's all works our way all the way up to the government.
So, Rick, on Connie's point about these elders and so forth that are in the organization and people believe that they've been appointed by Holy Spirit, well, it's simply not true. I mean, I've been telling on 6 screens that I was appointed a servant and could have been appointed an elder, but I was covering up in adultery. So it's out there plenty. And how you really know it's out there in the flock book, I forget what page it's on, but if you've committed adultery and you're an elder and 5 years have passed and you still have the respect to the congregation, however they measure that, the respect to the congregation, but whatever. Anyway, if you've committed in adultery and you've covered it up for 5 years, you tell the elders, you don't get removed. And if you're actually watching kiddie porn, which is going to lead to pedophilia, it absolutely is going to lead that way. You just tell the other elders, and you're not going to disfellowship. You're not even going to get removed. What a very, very sick, perverted organization. And if you're a Pimo out there listening, these people that are appointed, servant, elder, circuit overseer, governing body, yeah, we know governing body, they're not appointed by Holy Spirit. There is a spirit that appoints them, though. That's a spirit of Satan, the devil, the father of the lie. Thanks, Rick.
Well, Dick, good to have you back with us here tonight, and so good that you're recovering well, and we're glad to have you commenting once again, Dick. Thank you very much. All right. Well, we do have a guest coming up that I want to bring on. You with us, Hada Satija? Are you on the line with us, Hada Satija? That's her name, Hada Satija. Are you on the phone line with us? Did you call in? Let me just see.
Hey, Rick, I thought I heard your phone ringing a few minutes ago. Was she trying to get in touch with you?
No, that wasn't her. No, that wasn't her. I'm not sure what the area code is. Well, let me just check things out here for a second. Hada Satija. Hada Satija Akusani. That's her name. Hada Satija Akusani. Are you on there with us? Are you on there with us? Hit *6 if you are. If you are, hit *6 on your telephone pad, Hadajah. All right. Well, let me just take a look.
Do you want to give her her phone number, and I can see if she's on the ready?
Yeah, let me just get in there, Susan. Give me 1 second. Let me just get into my email here, and we'll look up Hada Satija. Now, that's not her real name, friend. She's, from what I understand, she's an American woman. She's an author, former Jehovah's Witness. And we'll get Hadajah on with us here shortly. Let me just check one thing out here. And let me give you her number. I'm going to see the area code that she's calling from. Then that might help me because 336. We get a lot of callers coming in tonight. Let me just look at 336 to see if Hadajah is on with us. 336. Okay, so Susan, come in here. I'm going to give you her number. I don't want to say it over.
I'll be right
there. Bring a pen and paper with you if you would. All right. So Susan's going to give her a call here. I just don't want to give her telephone number over the air here. So yeah, she's an author. She's got a few books she's already written. So I'm just going to give Susan here. Don't knock the camera over. The camera's behind you. Don't knock the camera over. It's behind you. Yeah. Oh.
You know what I was thinking? It almost sounded like too. Maybe that thing was trying to be covered up somehow. Like she just happened to go to the bathroom and lose his baby and stuff. Like, wouldn't they try to maybe protect the circuit overseer's reputation? And anything could go on there. It goes beyond just the act itself. And even when the congregation tries to cover it up, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Well, they could be.
There's still some information here that we need because it sounds fishy, it sounds weird. Not fishy, it sounds true, but there's more information needed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we're going to give her a call. We're going to talk to Hadajah. But thank you for bringing that up, brother. Hadajah, if you're on there with us.
Yeah, I know. Okay.
I'm saying Hadajah, but I'm just cutting it short. But the correct pronunciation here is Hadashah. Hadashah Asani. Are you on there with us? All right, we're going to give her a call anyways. But anyways, folks, I want to thank you all for coming in here. Now, she wrote a few books. I'm going to give you the title of a couple of the books here that she's written. See what you think. They got my attention, and I'll give you the title of the books here. And it's kind of disappointing. She really wanted to come on. I'm surprised that she's not on. She's from North Carolina, from what I understand. But let's see if I can't get where we were. The books that she wrote. So here's the books. The books really quite provocative sounding. Well, I think Susan's got her on the line now, so we'll try to get her in here. So, anyways, the back room is the new one she's writing, and will the real Satan please stand up? So that sounds pretty good too. I want to hear what she has to say. So let's just give her a few minutes. She wasn't going to come on video. She's just going to come on the telephone line. So my wife, Susan, is getting a hold of her right now. So stay with us. You're on the 6 Screens Tele Network. And boy, we had a lot of callers calling in tonight. I want to thank you all for coming into the 6 Screens and want to spend some time with us. It's really good that we see our audience growing. We get more and more people. All right, slow down. She's on there now? All right, good. Okay, good. Okay, good. Susan, my wife, got her on here, so she's going to come on. Yeah, I've been talking with her the last couple of days here, and she's looking so excited. She's a former witness, and she's got a story to tell you about her being in the back room. So by all means, you want to hear that as well. And we'll ask her for the correct pronunciation. See if I'm hitting it right. When I talked to her the other day, I think I did have it right, but it is a little difficult. All right, let me see what's happening here with Hadija. Okay. Okay. Are you on there with us? Hadija?
Yes, I'm on. Hello, Rick.
Oh, there you are. Okay. So I had to have my engineer here, my chief engineer, give you a call. So you're ready to go. So now listen, would you do me a favor? Would you just pronounce your name and tell the audience? Let me get a shot at it and see if I come close. Okay.
Okay.
Hada Sadija Akusani.
Yes, and I generally just go by Hadassah.
Hadassah. Okay. Okay. But you do spell it Hadasadajah and then Akusani. So tell us about that name.
Okay, I was originally born Christine Taylor in Utica, New York. And I started, I used to go from church to church, and I was very disappointed in what I was learning. It was mostly emotional, but I was starved for intellectual stimulation, and I wasn't getting it in church. So when my brother, who had started with Jehovah's Witnesses, he invited me to sit in on his studies. And that's how I got started on that. But when I started on a search for spiritual truth, that's when I changed my name legally to Hadassah Chaka Akusani, which means searching for spiritual truth and understanding.
All right, so it's a spiritual connection to the name.
Yes.
All right. All right. So, we talked a little bit, and you are, of course, a writer. You're an author, a former Jehovah's Witness. How long were you in the organization?
17 years.
And were you a loyal witness?
Oh, yeah. I started with my brother in 1972, and I got baptized in early 1973. And I was a steady witness. I pioneered every maybe about 2 or 3 months out of the year.
So you didn't have any issues at first. You thought it was really, you thought it was the pure religion. You loved learning about Jehovah and all about the things that they were teaching you. You didn't see any behavior that was unusual or what you would say would be incorrect.
No.
All right, Hada. So let's kind of go back to why you left. You're a loyal witness. You love being one of Jehovah's Witnesses, but something got you kind of irritated, and you wanted to leave the witness. Yeah.
Well, what happened was I didn't leave. I was actually disfellowshipped because I was working as a police officer in Utica. And at night, I moonlighted at the county jail as a special deputy, and I was a transport officer for the Oneida County Sheriff's Department. So I would sleep during the day before I have to go back to the police department at 4 in the afternoon. And so when the elders were out in the neighborhood doing their door-to-door work, I had a friend that came to my house, because also what I did was I was a community activist at the same time. And I was working on the AIDS Commission in Utica, working with people that were ill, helping them set up things. And so one of the persons in our advocacy group, he came to me knocking on the door, banging on my door, and I was asleep on my sofa. So, and I lived on the second floor apartment. So when I came down to answer the door in my pajamas and robe, he was telling me that one of the persons I was working with had succumbed to his illness from AIDS complications. So while we were on the porch talking about this person, the elders came by out in service on my block. And so they were looking at me kind of funny. And I didn't know what was going on. But anyway, they went on up the block doing witnessing work. And when we finished, I just went back in the house and went back to bed because I knew I had to be back at the police department at 4 o'clock that afternoon. But anyway, maybe about a few weeks later, I talk about this in the book. A few weeks later, I got a call from the elders that they wanted to talk to me in the back room of the Kingdom Hall. So I thought it was because I was missing a few meetings because I also have asthma. Not that bad. I had it bad as a child, but I had kind of like grown out of it. But I thought maybe that's why they wanted to talk to me about my field service was falling behind or had missed a few meetings, because quite often I would wind up in Faxton Hospital on a breathing machine. So I thought maybe that's why they were coming to talk to me, but it wasn't about that. It was about that day that they were witnessing in the neighborhood and saw me talking to this guy on the porch. So there was about 4 elders. Dave Giardino came down from Riverside congregation on Walker Road. And we had David Giardino, David Davenport, or Otis, I can't think of his name. Anyway, there were 4 elders. So I asked my brother, who brought me into the truth, if he could come with me into the back room, because I didn't know what to expect. I'd never been in that back room before. But they told me, no, that wasn't possible. So when they started talking to me, they started asking me about the situation with the guy on the porch. So I said, what about him? And they said, well, what are you doing on the porch in your bathrobe in pajamas at that time of day, unless you were sleeping with this guy? So I got angry because of that. I said, why would you come to that conclusion simply because I'm standing on my porch talking to someone? You didn't ask me what it was about, which really would have been none of your business anyway. But why do you jump to the conclusion that it had to be something nasty? And they said, well, because of my attitude and the way I spoke to them, that they were going to put me on reproof. And that's how it started out. And it went on from there. And then a few weeks later, I guess they announced that I was disfellowshipped, and, oh, you can come to the hall on Sundays, you can comment at the Watchtower, but I have to let the congregation know that you will be disfellowshipped. And that's how I left the organization. But I go into more detail in the book about it. And the title of the book is, Will the Real Satan Please Stand Up? Well, and then the second, that book came out in 2023.
Well, you stay right on stay right on that book for a second. That's a really provocative title. Now, does that, will the real Satan please stand up? I mean, you're referring to the Watchtower here, Adasa?
No. The real Satan is Jehovah himself. And I know that will turn some people off, but you will understand it when you actually read the book. Because I say, who did more killing in the Bible than Jehovah? Jehovah did more killing in the Bible than the so-called Satan or devil ever could. And I know, especially, and there's a lot of ex-witnesses too that still believe Jehovah to be the one true God. And so I know that will upset a lot of people, but you have to read the book to understand why I come to that conclusion. And then and like I said, that's the name of the book. Will the real Satan please stand up?
Well, now I haven't. Now slow down. So, but I've heard that. I've heard that from other witnesses before. I mean, ex-witnesses. I have heard what you. Do you think there's a lot of people that prescribe to that way of thinking, that Jehovah is actually Satan?
I think more and more people are coming to that conclusion, especially I think because of what's going on in the organization, because I hear a lot of people on YouTube videos say, well, it's not Jehovah's fault, it's the congregation, it's the governing body, it's the elders, it's these, it's that. But then when you say, well, why isn't Jehovah doing anything about it? There's a scripture in the Bible where he says, he that is touching you is touching my eyeball, meaning that he really cares about his people. But yet there's so much molestation cases, CSA cases, and nothing is being done about it. There's so much abuse. There's so much breaking up of families. Jehovah, according to what we learned, he's very jealous for his name, and he don't want his name reproached. And there are people that get disfellowship for what they say reproaching Jehovah's name. But yet, where is the what do you call it, punishment or whatever you want to call it, for when the CSA cases are done and nothing is being done about it? We shield our children from the outside, but what about those who are being harmed from within? And nothing is being done about it. Families are being destroyed. My brother that brought me into the truth in 72, when I got this fellowship, I became so ill from what was going on that I started having more trouble with asthma again. And finally, the doctor told me I would have to move to a hot, dry climate because everything was being done and I was about to suffer a collapsed lung. So I had to leave my home in Utica and drive 2,700 miles to the desert of Arizona. Now, my brother, he agreed to help me drive the 3.5-day drive to Arizona, and then he took the flight back to Utica. But the thing about it is, that's when the last time he was willing to speak to me because of the disfellowship thing. Now, so it's been 38 years since he's spoken to me. This is not the trait of a true God, a loving God, or a loving organization. My father had 10 children, 5 girls and 5 boys. We were the closest in the family, which is why I ended up following him into the organization. But then that same organization severed that tie because I was being shunned.
Well, let me ask you a question. Rick had to go for a moment. He'll be right back. I'm so glad we got in touch with you. What my question would be, do you really feel that Jehovah's Witnesses were the one true religion when you were getting out of it? I mean, do you still believe that?
No, not at the point that I was leaving, no. And there were times when I was beginning to see certain things. I would ask certain questions, and I was told that those are questions I should not ask. I don't really want to go into detail about the questions I asked, but anyway, the elders didn't like the fact that I was asking certain questions. They said, you go by what's in the watchtower and awake, and that's what you go by. Jehovah feeds his people through the organization, and you have to trust the organization. And it kind of bothers me when I'm told that I can't question things, that I just have to believe what I'm told. I don't go with that. So that started me to thinking some things that maybe this is not the true organization. But at that time, I still felt strongly about Jehovah, but I was beginning to have questions about the organization. But the more things happened and the more things unfolded, like for instance, when I had to leave Utica and travel to Arizona, I didn't know anybody in Arizona. Once my brother took the flight back to Utica, I didn't know anybody in Phoenix, Arizona. But I knew I had to be there in order to heal my respiratory tract. So, and I know it was kind of deceptive on my part, like I say in the book, but I didn't tell when I found the Kingdom Hall because I was lonely out there. I didn't tell them that I had been disfellowshipped in Utica. And I don't know how they found out. The elders in Arizona found out about my disfellowshipping, but they, I know it's a long story, but you have to read it in the book. They started treating me very differently. They told me I didn't belong there. And the next thing I do, to make a long story short, I wound up losing my home, my apartment. I lost my job because I was doing law enforcement also in Arizona. And when I lost my job, I lost my home. I started living on the streets. I was living on the streets of Phoenix for about 4 weeks to a month. And so I went to a sister's house, one of the sisters I used to pioneer with in Arizona. By this time, I had been in the Kingdom Hall in Arizona almost 7 years, and 10 years in Utica, but almost 7 years in Arizona. And by this time, I went to one of the sisters' hall that I had pioneered with, and I asked her if I could just stay with her for the night until in the morning, and if she could take me to social services so that I could maybe get enough money to catch a flight or a bus back to Utica, to my mother's house. My mother lived on Lenox Ave in Utica. And her husband at the time was a ministerial servant. So I could hear them talking in the background. And she said I would have to call the elders and ask for that permission. So the elders told, when she called the elders, they told her that I was an apostate now. I was disfellowship and that she would be displeasing Jehovah if she took me in. So
But you know, you weren't displeasing Jehovah, you'd be displeasing the congregation, or the governing body made them think that you would be displeasing God himself.
But I guess I was upset because I was upset
contaminating the kingdom hall, which is wrong.
Yeah, because that's one thing that Dave Giardino said to me in Utica. He said, you're contaminating the sisters. Now, why he said that, I said, Dave, what do you mean when you say I'm contaminating the sisters? He said, because you're talking about things that we don't have in the watchtowers, or you're asking questions and things. I said, what is wrong with asking questions? And so it wasn't that I was angry with Jehovah. I was angry with the fact that this is supposed to be the truth. This is his organization. So why is he allowing this when I've been a faithful witness for 17 years at that point? Even the fact that at the time that I first started studying, I was engaged to be married. I was 22 years old. I was engaged to be married, but the guy I was going to marry, he was a good guy, but he didn't want anything to do with the organization. And so the girl I was studying with, or that was studying with me, she said, well, you know, Jehovah says, do not become unevenly yoked with unbelievers. So she said, so you would be turning your back on Jehovah if you marry this guy. So I said, well, I'm not baptized yet. I'm not. She said, yeah, but you're choosing this worldly guy over Jehovah. And Jehovah says, quit touching the unclean thing. So to make a long story short, I decided to go ahead and let this guy go and fully immerse myself into the truth, what I thought was the truth. And I began pioneering regularly, trying to get my mind off this guy. And maybe about a year or so, a few years later, I found out that he had married someone else. Oh. And that really disappointed me. And they told me he had a son. I said that could have been mine. And it was just, I don't know. So basically, you were just fellowship for answering the door in your bathroom? Yes, because they assumed because I was dressed that way in the middle of the afternoon. He said, you wouldn't be dressed that way in the middle of the afternoon if you hadn't been sleeping that guy. They said you were probably trying to rush him out of there before the witnesses were in the neighborhood. I said, I know the witnesses are in the neighborhood every Saturday because I was one of them. I pioneered in this neighborhood, remember? So, no, I wasn't trying to. What was that? I said, I'm very sad that happened to you. That's ridiculous that they did that to you in that way. Yeah, they made a wrong assumption. I said that you would make the nastiest of the assumptions simply because of the way I'm dressed. I said, but you don't understand. I work all 4 to 12, 3 to 11 at the police department. I said, then I checked into the county jail at midnight to work the midnight to 8 shift because I was in charge of G block at the Oneida County Sheriff's Department. I said, so this time of day is my middle of the night. So yes, I'm in my pajamas and robe because I was just waking up by the doorbell ringing. Of course. But yet they insisted that I was lying. They insisted that I was lying and that I must have been sleeping with that guy. I have a question. Were they upset with you working for law enforcement? Yeah, they were upset, but I wasn't going to quit. Of course not. That's a fine job to have. But in Arizona, now it was a different story because it's like every job I took, they had a problem with it. I worked in Scottsdale, Arizona, as a nanny, and part of my job was to take those children to church on Sunday because their parents were away. And I was a living housekeeper at that time. And so the elders told me that I couldn't do that because I was going to church with them. I wasn't supposed to be a part of the church. So I wound up quitting that job. And then I got a job in the hospital. And they said, well, you have to deal with blood transfusions. I said, I don't do blood transfusions. Part of my job as a nurse's aide, I have to hold the bag while the needles are being inserted. I said, but I'm not actually giving the blood. They said, but Jehovah says, quit touching the unclean thing. So to make a story short, there were several jobs that I had started and stopped in Phoenix because nothing seemed to be pleasing to the organization, where everything was then offensive to Jehovah. And these are the things that made me start doubting the organization itself. And like I said, it started me doubting or trying to wonder what kind of God this Jehovah is, if everything is negative or there's nothing that pleases him. And I started doing much more research. But what I'm saying is I ended up so depressed that I ended up on East McDowell Street in Phoenix in the psych ward. And I was in that psych ward for, like I said, almost a month. I was living on the streets for about a month, and they kept me so hyped up on these psychotropic drugs that I couldn't think straight. But I started taking the medication they were giving me and hiding it under the mattress or under my pillow. So I started getting back into my own mind. And when I did, I was able to call the girl that I was studying with. I had this girl that I met out in field service, and she accepted a Bible study. So I called her, and she came and got me out of the psychiatric center and brought me to her home. And that's how I got out of there. So, but the rest of the story is in the book.
Well, Hadassah, that's something else. I mean, you got a lot of people really sitting back and saying, "Wow, that poor woman, you were not treated fairly." That is for sure. But so many people now on this new book you're writing, The Back Room, you're looking for people that might have had experiences in the back room like you.
Yes, I would like to have people write in and give me or email me and give me their experiences for the back room. And I would like yours too, Rick. You were telling me that you had gone through some things.
Oh yeah, in fact,
If you don't mind.
oh yeah, no, in fact, I will. In fact, I'll just tell you a little bit. Of course, I was brought in the back room, and they accused me of starting a church, and that wasn't true at all. I started studying the Bible with some people, and they didn't like that idea. And then, of course, they brought me in, and I was a partaker. I used to take the emblems. I was of the heavenly class, so to speak. And what really got my attention is when they brought me in the back room for judicial committee hearing for me starting a church. That was basically what they told me. When they brought me in the back room, you would think that a person who's been in the so-called truth for 50 years, that they would at least pray. Can we kind of help Brother Farron here? He's deviating from the truth, but they don't even do that, Daka. So it's just crazy stuff. But why don't you give us your email? So if anyone has an experience in the back room of the Kingdom Hall, they could write you and you could get their information, perhaps put in your book. Okay. Why don't you give us your email?
Okay. It's HADAKU, the letter X as in X-ray, 7987 @gmail.com.
And what I'll do if anyone is out there listening and they would like to write, if you want to just write me as well at jwworldnews@gmail.com and say, hey, I'd like to tell my story of being in the back room. I'll make sure that Hadassah gets that. Okay. Well, that is just.
That would be fantastic.
Yeah, no, but you sound like a very level-headed lady. You certainly don't sound like you're on here making stories up. I mean, if you were in.
No, because sometimes when you can tell your experience, in fact, what happened was I had to end up going to, when I got out of the psychiatric center, I was so messed up. And by the time I got back to Utica, my sister, I got to my mother's house, but I started having nightmares of the times I lived on the street in Phoenix because I didn't know if I was going to be raped or molested or killed or what, because where I was sleeping at was in an alleyway between two downtown buildings. and I had lost my vehicle that I drove to Phoenix in because it was repossessed. How they found out where I was at, I don't know, but they have ways. But I was living out of my car when I lost my apartment. And so when the car was repossessed, I had nowhere to live. So I was living in an alleyway between a 7-Eleven and another store. And the only way I was able to eat was when they would bring outdated foodstuffs out of this to put in the garbage. That's what I started using for my meals. But when I got to my mother's house, I was having nightmares, and I was still so messed up from that time that I ended up back in the psychiatric center on York Street in Utica, in West Utica. And so it's really been a wild ride. I said all this because I thought I was serving a God that I loved and that loved me, but I had promised the superior God, I said, whatever God is there, when I was in the psychiatric center, I said, whatever God is there, please let me get back to my right mind, and I promise I will not rest until I do study and research and understand why all of this had to happen. And that's what I did.
Well, Darcy, you are quite the woman. I'll tell you that right now. You have been through a lot, and that's why I don't have, and I say it all the time, I don't have a soft spot from the top of my head to the bottom of my feet for what the witnesses have done to so many people. They really made life difficult for you. I mean, to the point of psychiatric help, living on the street. And I wonder how many more Jehovah's Witnesses that are left or been disfellowshipped are homeless today because of this stupid organization. You know, when you think about it.
You know what? The girl that I used to study the Bible with, like I said, she was the only one that didn't turn her back on me. So the elders are asking her if she was still considering getting baptized. She was telling me this when I was staying with her. She said they asked her if she was still going to get baptized. She said she didn't know what had happened to me, because she said when I went to back to the Kingdom Hall on a Thursday night for the theocratic school, she said I asked the sister, has anybody heard from Hadassah? And the sister said, well, yeah, she came to my house to see if she could stay for the night, but the elders told me not to let her because that would be displeasing to Jehovah. So they said, she's still going to get baptized. She said, she said, this girl came here all the way from Utica, New York to heal her damaged respiratory tract, and you put her out in the street and you think I want to get baptized? So she said she walked out of the Kingdom Hall that Thursday night, and she said that was the last time she had seen or talked to any of the witnesses.
Oh, that's a good story. And, you know, I often think of that. How many people were getting ready to be one of Jehovah's Witnesses and heard about some of the craziest stuff they do to people? I mean, it's going to be millions of people that said, I'm not going to touch those people with a 10-foot pole. Oh, this is, yeah.
Hi, Rick.
Hi, Fran.
Hi, and hi, Hadassah. Joe and I, we have been speaking to Hadassah quite a bit. We have her book. We're reading it. She's a very intelligent person. And Utica is where we are. Joe's from Utica. It's like 10 miles from where we live. We know the Kingdom Halls that she was at. We know the elders that she spoke about. And that is just a terrible, terrible story and situation, what she went through. But she's a strong person. She's gone through a lot, but it made her stronger. And I think the next book that she comes out with, The Back Room, is going to be really, really good. And we really encourage anybody that has any stories about the back room and what the elders did to them to please send it to her. She wants to put it in her book.
Well, that is.
Thank you so much, Fran. I appreciate
you're
that.
welcome, Hadassah.
Well, we all found a friend here in Hadassah. I mean it. All of a sudden, everybody is really reaching out to you, and you really come across as a very, in fact, as Fran said, a very intelligent woman, and you have a real story.
Yeah, what I did was in order to try to understand religion, and even in 2014, at the age of 64. I went back to college to the University of Metaphysical Sciences. And in 2018, I graduated with a bachelor's degree. And I did a thorough study of religions while I was in the university. And so I learned a lot about religions and even about, believe it or not, Jehovah's Witnesses. And that's one of the things, too, that helped me understand what I was writing.
Oh, so in fact, your story is really heartbreaking. It really is a heartbreaking story. And, even this idea of you had a nice man, too, that you really thought you could really get to know, and perhaps even he could have been your husband. But the witnesses had to.
Because he loved me too, but he said he was not at all interested in Jehovah's Witnesses in the organization. And of course, me thinking I'm being loyal to Jehovah and the organization, I let him go. And they said, well, if you love Jehovah, then you have to choose Jehovah over a worldly guy.
It's really interesting to bring that story up, because I bet there's a lot of people listening to this program tonight that, they could have had a really nice mate, and they weren't a witness. And of course they were discouraged from marrying that person, or even dating or getting to know that person. A lot of people listening into this call tonight that gave up a really good person because of this crazy organization and the ways they do business. They're so hurtful.
And one of the things that hurt me the most, because I always wanted children. But since I never got to marry that guy, shortly after, I had to undergo a radical hysterectomy, which means I was never then able to have children. So I said, here I am now. I just turned 75, and I'm older now. I have no children because I trusted in that organization.
Well, you have a real bone to pick, Hadassah, I'll tell you that. Really. I mean, I've brought people on the last 20 years, but I got to put you right there, right at the top of extreme abuse in the Watchtower. You have suffered it. Now, can we open up the lines and have some people talk to you a little bit?
Yes.
So anyways, we got Hadassah on with us. You heard her story, folks. Go ahead. Say hello to Hadassah.
This is Stefan, and I just want to say I'm very sorry to hear about the life that you've had. And of course, as I know, that many of us witnesses, unfortunately, have gone through comparable things. One question that I have, and you can either give an answer or perhaps an indication of where we might go to learn a little bit more information. And that had to do with your statement about Satan and Jehovah or Yahweh essentially either being the same person or not. Can you either tell us a little bit more or tell us where we might go for more information? Thank you.
Well, the answer I explain it thoroughly in the book, The Real Satan. Will the real Satan please stand up? It's all explained in the book. The research, the bibliography, everything is in there.
Okay. Is that available on Amazon?
Yes, it's available. Both are available on Amazon.
Okay, great. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Well, I have to give you credit for writing books too, Hadassah. That takes a lot of time and effort and concentration. That's amazing that you're able to do that as well. Congratulations on that. So who would like to say hello to Hadassah? Man, you heard her story. She's got a story to tell. You want to talk about being beat up by an organization? These guys, I'll tell you what, they almost got me feeling like I want to go out and punch those elders in the nose that did this to her. That's not right to do that. Just because she shows up in a bathrobe and talking to a man she's supposedly having relations with him, that's stupid.
Hey, Rick.
Yes.
Hey, Rick.
Yes.
Hi. I want to say hi to the sister, and I have a similar situation as she has in several different ways, and I would love to talk to her. I'm outside working right now, so I don't have anything to write down, but I'll give her my email if she could contact me.
Yeah, in fact, what I'll do, Larry, is I'll give Hadassah your email. I've got it. Okay, kind loving. That's the one. Yeah, I'll give her that.
Yeah, kindloving 2001 at yahoo.com.
Yeah, because you got a story to tell about the back room too. You got some pretty difficult stories to tell too. All right, I'll put you in touch with her, Larry. Yes.
All right. Thanks, Rick.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So what do you think? Do you have a story for the back room? Boy, I'll tell you what, Hadassah does. I'm surprised I'm surprised she isn't bouncing around in a rubber room somewhere with the way she was treated.
Boy, I tell you, some of the questions they asked me, here you're sitting at one woman in a room with four guys, and they each asking you sexual questions. What did it penetrate? There was not even any sex involved. I was talking to somebody on my porch in my bathroom that came to let me know that a guy that I was working with in the AIDS Foundation had just died. And my family owned the own black funeral home in Utica, which was Gibson's Funeral Service. My mother's Bertha Gibson and her brother, they owned that black funeral home. So we did a lot of work with the community. My younger brother, he took over as undertaker when my uncle passed away. And so he took over the funeral home. But the questions they asked me is like, so when this guy passed away, I wanted to help with the arrangements since we owned the funeral home. But the questions they asked me was just really, dirty.
Well, no,
That's why I say backroom experiences is good, because when you tell these experiences, because I had to go to Catholic Charities Counseling Center on Genesee Street and talk about my experiences. It's my counselor, Lois Wells, that encouraged me. She said, what you need to do is write out your story to start the healing process, because she said, otherwise you may end up back in the psychiatric center. And that's when I began to write, really.
Oh, Adasa, in fact, you know, I can't possibly believe how a man would be able to even suggest that to a woman. You know, what type of sex did you have? You had a bathrobe on, something must have been going on. I can't believe that a man would even, how would they have the guts to even speak up that this is totally a satanic organization?
That's why I told them they had dirty minds. And because I said they had dirty minds, that's why they said my attitude was bad. And I was conduct unbecoming a Christian. Why? Because I said you got dirty minds?
Well, they did they use the word brazen? Because I mean that's a term too. They'll disfellowship one because they have a brazen conduct. Well, that wasn't a brazen conduct. Geez, if I was even a man, if I was questioned what type of sex it was, none of their business, and I didn't have it to begin with. And for them to even disfellowship me on that, that's totally wrong. Totally wrong. Jeez.
Simply because of the way I was dressed on the porch. I had just awakened up. The doorbell woke me up. I was sleeping because I had worked all night at the county jail.
I'll tell you, no, that's I've heard some pretty crazy things that have happened to the witnesses, but for them to, they didn't even cut you any slack. They did not even cut you any slack, and I don't know what it is in the witness world. But just as they see a man and a woman together, they don't even want a man and a woman in the same car together. They think they're going to be having some type of relations with each other. That's not the real world. That's not the real world. That's their world. They're a perverted organization. They're sick, totally sick. Who wants to say hello to Adasa?
Talking about because of the time of day. Well, it's this time in the afternoon. Why are you in your bathrobe and pajamas? I said, because I was sleeping. That's why.
I can't even believe that story. That's too much, Adasa. Yes.
Hello?
Yes.
Hi, this is Stephen again. I'll just tell a quick story to the sister because it's not my story, so I'm not going to email it. But I had a really close friend that I've known since I was probably about 5 years old. So that's been many moons ago. But in any event, he had married a woman, brought her into, the witnesses, and they were happily married for just a few years. And then the marriage essentially collapsed, and she began having an affair with someone at the job. And he ultimately moved to a different state just to kind of get a clean start. Well, when he was there, he befriended these two sisters that lived in his apartment complex, and they were much younger. They were, much younger, than he. But they were these two pioneer sisters. They had very little money. They were not, dressed for the weather, and this was in Minnesota. Winters get really cold there. So he would just kind of help them out as much as he could. Well, the elders there tried to turn that into, well, you guys must all be having some sort of sexual, I've forgotten what the word is, on multiple people I've said. And they were getting ready to and so they tried to disfellowship him, A, because they said, well, you're married and you keep putting yourself in the company of these single sisters. So they were getting ready to disfellowship him. So the night they were going to disfellowship him, he brought in his divorce decree because he had already gotten divorced scripturally and lawfully. And so they felt embarrassed by that. Then they tried to coerce and force the two sisters to say that, yes, there was some sort of sexual thing going on. And they kept saying, no, there is nothing sexual going on. He is like a big brother to us. And in a lot of ways, he's really helped us because he has given us food. He bought us boots and coats and things that we needed to allow us to continue to pioneer. We would have stopped pioneering had it not been for him. So they had so much animosity because this brother basically just made them look bad, even though he wasn't doing it deliberately and nobody else knew about it. So in any event, they just came up with some kind of a charge and disfellowshipped him. And he was disfellowshipped for 18 years. 1-8. 18 years.
That's the way they were with me in the back room. They seemed like they were so angry.
Yes.
And they were coming at me one at a time, one after the other, asking stupid questions, dirty questions.
Yes. And so during that 18-year period, he went to all of his meetings. He was always clean cut. There was no excuse for why they couldn't reinstate him. And by the way, they never even told him why they disfellowshipped him. Never even told him. Even the circuit overseers got involved. They tried to help. And he put in reinstatement letter after reinstatement letter. He had a stack about an inch thick of all the reinstatement letters and the letters that he sent to Bethel, demanding that something be done about the fact that he was wrongfully disfellowshipped and he's being prevented from getting back. This went on, as I said, for 18 years. And so finally, he moved back to his home state, and he was just picked the closest Kingdom Hall, and he started going. And it just so happened that this hall, the elder body, were basically they're all family. They were either brothers or they were brothers-in-law, which I've not seen that many halls like that. And the sisters were going up to the sisters of the elders saying, hey, what's going on with this guy? You know, he's single, he comes to the meetings, and he's clean cut, and, you know, why can't he get reinstated? Maybe he might want to marry somebody. And so they started hounding the elders. Long story short, the elders were able to get him reinstated. But he could only be reinstated on one condition. And that condition was that he never tell any other witness how he was wrongfully disfellowshipped and kept out of the organization for 18 years, that he never did anything wrong. And that was the only condition. Not, have you been involved with any kind of activities for 18 years? Have you smoked? Have you done drugs? Have you had, no, none of that. Just don't tell anybody. Go along with the cover-up. If you go along with the cover-up, then we'll go ahead and get you reinstated after 18 years of being out. So that for me is the wildest story I've never heard. And like I said, I wouldn't bother emailing it because it's not my story. It's somebody else's story. And of course, for them to stay a witness, they couldn't reveal it. But yeah, that really happened. And I know that for a fact.
Wow. Thank you for sharing that.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much. You know what it is too. I sit here in awe some nights when I listen to all these people calling in and some of the stories they tell. I just don't see of what value is it being one of Jehovah's Witnesses. Of what value is it to have someone take control of your life, accuse you of things you don't even do, ruin your life, stop Odessa from even having a nice husband, stopped Odessa from furthering her career and putting her on the street. What value is there in being one of Jehovah's Witnesses? I'd love to have an answer for that. I used to think, I was a witness, but, I wasn't treated like some of the people that I hear on here, but I know they're evil. What would you like to say? You're on with us. Go ahead.
Rick, can I speak?
Yes, go ahead.
Hadassah,
yes.
I'm so glad to hear your experience.
Thank you.
I want to get clear. When you were in Utica, that's where you got disfellowshipped?
Yes, from the Central Congregation on Campbell Street.
And that's where they stopped you from basically getting married. And that's there. Then you move to Arizona for your asthma, and then when you get down there, you can't work here or there or some other place, and you end up on the street.
Right.
So
because I wound up losing job after job, so I couldn't pay my rent. I lost my apartment, and then I couldn't pay my car note and back in Utica. So how they found out where I was, but they repossessed the car, and that's when I started living on the street.
You know, it's like some kind of what they've done to you. We often hear the two witness rule, but you had major things happen to you in two different parts of the country. There's no way you would think.
And what hurt me a lot, the most of all, is the fact that my brother and I were so close, and Jehovah, we're taught constantly that he's a God of love, he's a forgiving God, he's a merciful God. But the fact that my brother, and by the way, he's still in the organization. He's been in the organization since '72. All of his children are in the organization, and none of them are allowed to speak to me, even though I'm the only sister they have left, because my first sister died of lung cancer back in '95. And I had my youngest sister passed away. And so I only had two sisters left. And in the COVID years in 2021, both of them died in the same year. So I'm the only girl that's left. And the fact that my brother can't speak to me, I mean, I didn't murder nobody. I didn't do sexual things. I didn't do anything. But the fact that he could not speak to me for 38 years since he left me there in Phoenix, he has not spoken to me. And that's love?
Yeah, that's not. No, you can't. You can only see it. Being in that situation, you've been in two different parts of the country. Like you said, 2,700 miles you drove. And in each place, you had bad experiences with the elders, with those who are supposed to have authority and are supposed to know scriptures and that kind of stuff. There's no way you can't think that this is an evil organization.
Because the elders in Phoenix, they told me one of the things, because I did not openly admit and let them know, confess that I was disfellowshipped in Utica, they said that proved that I had a bad character and that I had evil inclinations.
Boy.
You know, I was an elder. In my experience, I remember there was a sister, I had never met her. I'd come into the congregation and she'd already been disfellowshipped. And I'm on the East Coast. And apparently she had moved out to, she had been disfellowshipped at the congregation I was in, though I wasn't there at the time. I was new, came in after she was gone. She moved out to California. And when she was in California, she got into association with the witnesses. And she was coming to the hall. And I guess they felt, she didn't tell them she had ever been baptized or anything. And so they saw her as a new person, an interested person. She's coming to the meetings. I think they used to do return visits on her. And at some point, they encouraged her to start progressing to baptism. And that's when the pressure was on her. And so she told them, I'm disfellowshipped. And so those elders got in touch with us. Now I'm an elder in the congregation. And they got in touch with us. And in that case, we had to set up a judicial committee because those elders recommended her being reinstated, but the original congregation has to do it. And I will say this, it was one of the most enjoyable judicial committees to sit on because all it involved was reviewing the letter the elders sent, all the good stuff about her, and all we had to say is we agree she should be reinstated, and she was reinstated by our congregation. I never met her. Still to this day, don't know her. So I'm thinking about these brothers. They sound like they have an extra evil going on with them. An interesting, your book that you want about the back, you're going to be writing about the back room. I have to laugh because as a kid, as I grew up, we were in a small kingdom hall, and when they met with somebody, if they didn't meet on a different day, you know, that there wasn't a meeting. If they were meeting with a person, they were pulling them in the back room. We didn't really have a back room. So they would sit in the front of the kingdom hall, the elders or whatever they called it at the time, and they would meet with the person right there in the front of the kingdom hall. Just had to say that. But my sister, your situation, it's proven to you. I was thinking about, wait, you're in two different parts of the country, and in each part of the country, they were evil with the way they treated you.
I had no idea how the elders in Phoenix, the elders in Phoenix, how the elders in Utica found out what Kingdom Hall I was attending in Phoenix. But the elders in Phoenix told me that they received a call from the elders in Utica about my disfellowship status. How they knew where I was at or what Kingdom Hall, I don't know.
Can I ask you what year was it, like in the 70s?
No, when I was disfellowshipped in, I can't think of the year, but anyway, it was in 1989 that I returned to, that I was living on the streets. And I returned to Utica in 1990 when I got enough money to return, because I was able to finally get a job at a nursing home just to make enough money to catch a bus back to Utica. So that was in 1990.
Yeah, I don't know how they found out, but obviously, you know.
I got to tell you a short story. I got to tell you a short story. When I was living on the streets and I was sleeping between 7-Eleven and another building in the alleyway, and I was feeling so distraught and lonely because, like I said, I had no family there, and I didn't want to put too much of a burden on the girl I was studying with because she was not a witness, and plus she was married to a man who did not like the guy I had. He did not like Jehovah's Witnesses. He didn't even like the fact that I was studying with her. But anyway, when I was living on the streets, I found out that there was a circuit assembly going on in downtown Phoenix. So just to feel a part of it and just to be around people, I made my way down to that assembly hall. And I don't know what happened, but I was listening to the talks going on stage. And then all of a sudden it's like this ruckus, and I see these guys rushing around, and I didn't know what was happening because they were still having talks on stage. And then I realized, like I said in the book, I noticed they were coming for me. So when they got to where I was, they grabbed the chair. I was sitting in the back on the floor section, not up in the bleachers. I was sitting in the back so that I could leave quickly and quietly. And they started making comments about my odor and how I was dressed, and I was not dressed right to be there. I said, after all, I am living on the streets. I don't have a change of clothing. I just came in here to get warm and to be around people. But they grabbed the chair I was sitting in, and it buckled, and I almost fell on the floor. But anyway, they ushered me back out of the auditorium, back out onto the street. So I went back to the alleyway where I was sleeping, and all my clothes were gone.
Oh my God! I'm so sorry, sister.
What happened was, like I said in the book, I found some pottery or something in the trash can in the back, and I tried to slit my wrist. And that's how I ended up in the psychiatric center, because they said, when I asked them how did I get there, East McDowell Street in the psychiatric ward, they said, well, when they went out of the 7-Eleven to put garbage out in the alleyway, that's when they found me, and I had passed out trying to slit my wrist. And so they called the police, and that's how I ended up in the psych ward.
so sorry.
Well, I'll tell you, Hadassah. Everyone wants to get the book. So again, the name of the book out right now. You got two books, right?
Yes, the first one is Will the Real Satan Please Stand Up?
And what's the second one?
It's the subliminal betrayal of religion through a climate of fear and its fear-inspiring God.
All right, my goodness. Well, they're on Amazon.
What's the author name on them?
Hadassah Akusani. And it's available. Both are available at Amazon.
How'd you spell the last name?
Akus as in Sam, Ani.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Now, let me ask you something, Hadassah. Now, it's I like the name Hadassah Asasani. It's got a nice ring. Now, seriously, now you picked that name. You didn't want to go by your real name. I mean, you think all the trauma in the Watchtower gave you this feeling that you had to change your name to something different?
No, I changed. Actually, Hadassah was the name of Esther in the Bible, and I changed my name to reflect starting on a path of searching for spiritual truth. It had nothing to do with the other, but just the fact that it symbolized my search for truth.
Wow. Well, you certainly had a story to tell, Hadassah. You got me on the edge of the seat, and you're a woman that has been through a lot. But look at you now. Now you're starting to shine. You're an author. People are they automatically warmed right up to you tonight, Hadassah. I can see it after doing the program for so many years. I can tell when we have a guest on, everyone loves you, Hadassah. You get a lot of friends out here, and if someone's trying, if someone.
I appreciate that because it's been a lonely journey, and then I met Joe and Fran, and it just melted my heart. Because I've been alone in North Carolina. Like I said, I never married. I didn't have any children because of hysterectomy, so I've been pretty much alone. But I listen to you every Saturday, and I did dedicate my first book to JT and Lady C, because when I first started watching YouTube videos, theirs were the first I came across, and that helped me with my healing. And so that's what happened. But
well, good for you. No, that's.
be amongst it.
Well, I'm so glad that boy, I'll tell you. Well, we're all one big community, and the people love you here at the Six Screens. And I don't want you to be a stranger now. And you speak up, and you come in and speak up, and let us know how you're doing. And we're all praying for you and rooting for you. And we hope that all good things work out for you, Hadassah. You're a brave woman, and thank you for wanting to come on the Six Screens tonight. So again, Hadassah, if you're trying to get a hold of Hadassah and you'd like to be in her new book, The Back Room, write me at jwworldnews@gmail.com, and I'll put you in touch with Hadassah. And oh my goodness, I'm looking forward to the book. I want to hear these.
I just want to say I want to give the credit to Joe and Fran because I can put words on paper, but I'm not good at speaking. And Joe and Fran encouraged me to call you, to get in touch with you and tell my story.
Well, I'll tell you,
So I give all the credit to Joe and Fran.
Well, I give the credit to them too. They're marvelous people. I know them personally. They've been here. They've been at the convention we had in August, and they're wonderful people. They're doing so much to bring the ex-witness world together, and we all love.
So are you, Rick. So are you, Rick. You give people a platform, and that's part of the healing too.
Oh, it is. Yeah. No, in fact, I have to tell you, we've all been touched by the tentacles of the Watchtower, and all of us. There's still some residual problems that many of us suffer because of that crazy organization. But you helped a lot of people here tonight, and I'll tell you who you helped. We get a lot of people listening in right now that they're PMOs, or some of it they're PIMQs. They're questioning the Watchtower, and who you helped tonight is these people are on the edge, because all it takes now is to hear stories like yours, and they're going to say, that is enough. I've had enough of it. And when that's why people can come on, they speak up. I know at times people say, well, I don't know if I believe that. I believe everything everybody says. We give everybody a voice here on the Six Screens because We've heard so many things that continually repeat themselves. And the thing that I would say repeats itself, I don't know how many times tonight the word evil was used, but I'd say almost everyone called in evil, evil, evil. People writing in the chat here on YouTube and Facebook, evil, evil, evil. But someone wrote on the chat here tonight, and I never really thought about it. But I have to think now. I've been thinking a lot about it since I saw it on there. Those elders in your congregation up in Utica, New York, a person said they were possessed, and I believe it. Jeez, to do that to you, and to ruin your life, they had to be possessed. And now I'm beginning to think that many elders are possessed. Satan loves to inhabit them, and that's where all this evil comes from, Adasa.
And yes, even with the elders in Arizona and Phoenix, they knew that I had come there to heal my respiratory tract because I was suffering asthma so bad. And even though the heat, it was a dry climate, so it was helping my lungs to heal. But still, knowing that I was having respiratory problems, that's the reason I came, and still to put me out on the street, knowing that's what hurt.
Oh, terrible.
Rick,
yeah.
Rick and Hadass, I'm thinking back to one time, sister, she was a pioneer sister. She's in fact my mother's best friend. And they were talking, and she said that the circuit overseer, his wife said that when you're bringing people, when you're studying with somebody, and they're dating somebody, and they're really serious, or sometimes they might even be living together, and they're really serious about each other, that circuit overseer said, stop telling them that they have to separate. Let them get married. Because what ends up happening is they get separated, and then you have a single woman in the organization, and now she's got problems, problems where she would like to get married. And so there was even a circuit overseer who said, stop telling them to break up, let them get married. And, the other person might not be it's not a witness usually, but let them get married, and then the lady, she can become a witness,
Yeah, in fact, I've often thought about that myself.
So I'm sorry, Rick, go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say that thought that you just brought up there, Zach. I thought about that too. In other words, the witnesses have nothing really to lose. They don't, because they might bring the unbelieving person into the organization. So I never could see the reasoning on that. Yep.
Yeah. All right.
All right. Well, thank you, Zach, and thank you all. And Adasa, now you stay in touch with us, and thank you very much for coming on our program tonight. You touched a lot of people. They all love you, Adasa. Keep moving in the right direction, and may things get.
Thank you so much for having me on.
Well, thank you. All righty. Well, anyways, folks, that kind of ends the Six Screens for tonight. But there'll be no Six Screens Sunday tomorrow. We'll be back in 2 weeks with Sunday edition of Six Screens. But I want you guys to keep standing tall. Don't you ever give in or up or out, just like Odessa. She never gave up, in or out. She's doing the best she can to move forward. And don't ever let your visions die either. And the last one, leaving the Watchtower, please turn off the new light. I'll leave the telephone lines on if people still want to keep talking. So you'll be off the air, but you can still talk on the telephone lines. Thank you very much for being with us tonight. We really appreciate it. Good night now.